Councilwoman Ferguson, would you mind doing an invocation, please?
Father, we thank you and we give you the glory for this day. We thank you for another opportunity to come together. And I ask that your will be done as we plan and discuss the affairs of the city. Father, I thank you for everyone that's in attendance today, and I ask that you will bless them and keep them in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll do the roll call. Councilwoman Jones,
Present.
Councilwoman Guillaume,
Present.
Councilman Herring,
Here.
Councilman Hairston,
Present.
Councilwoman Fareed, Councilwoman Fareed,
I don't see her.
Councilwoman Ferguson,
Here.
and Councilman Curtis is here. That is 6 in attendance. I do expect Councilwoman Fareed to be joining shortly. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, Council President.
Yes, Councilman Harry?
Yes. I see on this agenda that under topics of discussion is the ordinance to increase the stipend for the election board. That needs to be under legislation to be voted on because we discussed it at the work session. So I'm assuming it needs to be, it was going to be on this agenda to be voted on. And I'm not sure why it's under topics of discussion.
No, so I put it on the topic of discussion because I am tabling the ordinance.
Okay, well, it needs to be on the agenda first, and then it needs to be voted on to be tabled by the council. That's the procedure that should take place. It can't be tabled by individual council members. So
that's fine.
Okay,
that's fine.
Also, citizens' comments on FY22 budget. Again, I'm looking at the council rules, and the council rules have item number 10, the order of business. Citizens' comments can comment one only at the end of the meeting based on the council rules. It has a lineup for everything that's supposed to be done, the call of order, the invocation, roll call, motion to adopt the agenda. If there were any minutes, approval of the minutes, the legislation gets voted on, then everything else. And at the end of that is citizens' comments. So why is it citizen comments again under this piece of legislation?
According to our rules and charter, citizens are allowed to comment after every subject.
No, according to our rules, citizens are not allowed to comment on every subject. According to our rules, the citizens have a right to comment at the public hearings, and they have a right to comment, according to our rules, at the end of the meeting after the chief's report, before adjournment. That's what the council rules are stating.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Harris.
So is that coming off of the agenda?
Not at the moment, no.
So let me see if I get this straight. So you're not going to follow the council rules for this, but you're following council rules for, say, putting people out in disorderly conduct and everything else.
It's not what I said at all, Councilman Herring. I'll look at it. If the council rules said that it can't be done, then I'll move it. If not, then it'll stay where it is.
You don't have your council rules with you?
Are you done, Councilman Herring?
I'm asking a question. I'm asking, do you have your council rules with you? I would like to know because, you're the president of the council and the rules are to be followed. So I'm asking that the rules be followed.
And you just heard me say that if it is in the council rules, then we move it to the end. If not, then it can stay where it is.
So you're going to take one of the citizen comments off either at the end or at this point?
Either way, the citizens will have an opportunity to comment at this meeting.
At the end of the meeting or during the legislation phase? Or both, in violation of the council rules?
Whichever order, they'll have an opportunity to comment at the meeting. Is that all?
Yep, that's it. Let me say it's for the record. I just wanted to bring it up. I want to make sure that my comments are in the record, and I would like to copy those minutes when they are produced.
Yep. And it's also being recorded, so you can go back and look at it as many times as you like.
Well, I prefer to have them. I prefer to have it in the minutes and
It will be in the
voted
minutes.
on. All right,
It'll
appreciate
be in
it.
the minutes.
All
Mhm.
right.
Any other discussion for the agenda?
Council President.
Councilwoman Fareed?
Sorry, I was late. I'm here now. I would like to add a topic of the Woodmore Town Center Community Room and also the monies that we were supposed to receive from DR Horton as it relates to the Woodmore Town Center development for public safety.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion before we vote on the agenda?
One other, Mr. President, one other thing before we move forward.
Councilman Herring?
This mixing work session and regular meeting is really getting to be annoying. Work sessions are where we have our topics of discussion and we add stuff to it and we discuss it, you know, amongst ourselves and in front of the citizens, of course. But this is dragging out these meetings that adding topics of discussion to the regular meetings. That's not even one of the items on our, once again, our council rules have nothing on it for topics of discussion. So we need to start looking at that and following the rules that we have set in place before us. So just for the record, thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Herring. Okay, a vote to adopt the agenda. Councilman Herring?
Yes.
Councilman Hairston?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes.
Councilwoman Guillaume?
Yes.
Councilwoman, I'm about to call you Curtis because it says Curtis on the side. Ms. Jones, Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Councilwoman Ferguson?
Yes.
And Councilman Curtis is a yes. So the agenda is adopted. And first on the agenda is Penrose. Gentlemen, Mr. Bateman and Mr. Stewart, thank you for attending our meeting. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Council President Curtis, members of the City Council. First of all, I just want to say it's great to see everybody's faces. I look forward to a time when we can be back in person. Obviously, you know, deferring to Glenarden City Council is the one's the right time to do that. Briefly, my name is Patrick Stewart, Regional Vice President with Penrose. With me tonight is my colleague, Pat Bateman, who's a developer with Penrose. We've been working on this initiative for several years. I also want to note that I think we have hopefully Mike Little with B&W Solutions, one of our partners on this project. We were hoping he was going to be able to join us. We are also, I think, as everyone knows, partnering with the Redevelopment Authority of Prince George's County. And in addition to B&W, Shabbat Ministries, Inc., which is, as everybody knows, I think the nonprofit arm of First Baptist Church of Glenarden. So Steve Paul and Cynthia Terry, I think, were not able to join us this evening, but obviously have been, you know, closely involved through all phases of the project. So we just wanted to take the opportunity to get back in front of City Council and provide an update on what's happening with the project. It's been a little while. I look back and I can't believe it, but I think it was early 2019, the last time that we were in front of City Council. So obviously a lot has progressed since that point. I think the big update is that basically, I would say not much has really changed with the overall sort of program and the plan and the design of the project. But we just wanted to be able to recap some of the recent progress that we've made and some of the next steps leading towards completion of the overall revitalization. And so appreciate everybody convening and allowing us to do that. And I also just want to say briefly, I know since 2019, we've been some new members on City Council, so congratulations. Look forward to working with everybody and continuing that relationship. So I'm going to just reintroduce our team, and then Pat Bateman is going to take over and kind of walk us through an update of what we've been able to accomplish in the last 2 years since we last spoke. Once again, we are Penrose. We are the lead developer. we've been working with the RDA and our other partners on this project more or less since about 2015. Other team members include Mosley Architects, Ben Dyer Associates, civil engineer, Harkins Builders as the general contractor, and then Penrose is the management company. And then while we're waiting, I think, Pat, you can go to the next slide. One of the key things, I think I noted this, but not a whole lot has changed in terms of the overall program, the plan, the layout of the site. The things that have changed are kind of how we've approached phasing the project. If you want to think about it as a puzzle, the overall puzzle hasn't really changed. The way and the kind of the order in which that we've put the pieces together has evolved a little bit. We've been working on implementing this project again for several years. There have been a couple points at which we had to kind of reevaluate which piece went together in which order based on how the state was allocating its incentives and priorities. So we've had to adapt a little bit, but we're happy to report that we've been able to keep the core aspects that we've showed the city council previously intact, and that the overall goals, everything that we've largely shown city council previously is intact. It's just taken a little bit longer to implement it. And so overall, at the end of the day, we're still going to be delivering a little bit over 400 units of a mix of housing types, rental and home ownership, the same mix that we had previously presented, family and senior units. One of the things that we're going to walk through is the update on phase 2, which was actually the second phase of the affordable senior housing component of the overall project. That's completed, which is great progress. And then within that, it's a mix of affordable and market rate. And I think one of the things we've spoken with you all about in the past is that it's one of the unique things about this project is that mix of all those different housing types within really a new neighborhood fabric. And so we're just very excited about where we are and progress moving forward. Overall, the project represents about $110 million investment in the county. And again, kind of a unique approach, a complex approach in a lot of ways to delivering different types of housing, meeting different needs, different income levels, et cetera, mixed income. So with that, why don't we, Pat, if we want to go to the next slide. Just briefly, a timeline just kind of outlines a number of the steps that we've gone through, different points at which we've checked in with city council. And part of the purpose in putting this up here is to kind of illustrate what we've been up to since 2019. So we completed rental phase 1 about midway through 2019. That same year, we closed and started construction on the second rental phase, which was the second half of the senior building. Which recently, earlier this year, we all celebrated the virtual ribbon cutting of. That was completed late last year. And then what was a big thing that was kind of going on behind the scenes was figuring out how to rephase and restructure the final rental phases. We had made a couple of attempts in the past to secure tax credits, which are kind of the bedrock in the sense of the financing structure. And the state, as I sort of alluded to, as they do sometimes annually, changed the scoring incentives and made it a little bit more challenging to secure that financing for this particular project. We were able to figure out a way, again, to keep basically the overall plan in place while making some tweaks to the size of one phase versus the other, and came up with this concept of doing what we call a twin, which is kind of combining different parts of what were previously known as phase 2. And so we were able to secure tax credits after applying in the fall of 2020, which is a really big deal. That's increasingly competitive and means that the final 2 rental phases can move forward. And we'll get into a little bit more, but what that also means is that we now have the opportunity to move forward all the remaining phases of this project more or less concurrently, so including the home ownership phase. And so there's every time I put this slide up, there's a ton of colors and everything going on. So not going to try to confuse the details, but the point is to show phase 1 is complete, phase 2 is complete, and to highlight where on the site phase 3 and the the sort of twin pieces of phase 3, which are the 9% and the 4%, where they are located and where the home ownership phases are. But overall, again, a total of about 424 units. I don't know if anyone remembers, there was a point where we were going to do 430 units, just one of those tweaks that we had to make, where we figured out we didn't quite have room for some of the rental units, but we were able to keep all of the 97 for sale single family townhouses in the plan while making some of those other adjustments. So Pat, you can keep going.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Good evening, everyone. So I think the other thing about the setting this up as a twin previously that we weren't able to discuss with you last time we met was that we were contemplating this kind of second phase of phase 2, and we were calling it phase 2B. And it constituted part of what's now in the 9% and the 4%. But one of the great things about looking at this as a twin and getting tax credits awarded for both the 9 and the 4% is we were able to incorporate the building in the bottom right-hand corner of this image, which we're calling, it's like a walk-up breezeway garden type apartment building. And that never really had a financing plan worked out. So through setting this up as, two separate 9 and 4% transactions, getting them awarded, we were able to incorporate that building into that financing plan. And so it gave that building a way to move forward. And so as Patrick said, we're now able to build the remainder of the rental units on site that are part of this plan development, which is huge in closing this thing out. So I'm just going to briefly go through and recap what happened in phase 1 and phase 2A for the benefit of the group. And then I'll move into what exactly is happening with the 2 projects in phase 3 that are now moving forward. So you can see phase 1 here on the site plan. It's the largest phase to date, 114 units. And then phase 2A was the second half of that senior building. And that is what we just completed in October 2020 and are almost done, should be done leasing up this month. On the left 2 images here are the family units that were built in phase 1. There were 68 family units. They're in a stacked typology, so ones over twos or two over ones, and some townhouses mixed in, creates some very visually interesting buildings. And this same type of building will be built in both of the phase 3 projects. And then the 2 images to the right are the 46 unit senior building that was built in phase 1. That was the first half of that building, or roughly. And also built in phase 1 was the 6,000 square foot clubhouse. You can see it in the background of the upper right hand image is the exterior, the south elevation, and on the right hand side is the senior building, and within that is within the clubhouse is also a fitness room. There's a tot lot adjacent to it, and the remainder of the amenities will be built in phase 3. And then the actual the phase 2A portion of the senior building is the right half in the upper left hand image, or the southern half, and that's the additional 55 units that were just completed. You can see the images of the kitchen, the bedroom. It's a very nice building. So on to what's actually going on now. The twin, we're calling it the 9% project and the 4% project. They're very much moving forward concurrently. The 9% is the smaller of the 2. It's in the center of the site. It's 44 units, and that project is entirely those stacked family apartment buildings, the smaller buildings that I showed first in phase 1. And then phase 3, 4% is the remainder of those small stacked family apartment buildings, as well as the walk-up building on the southeast corner of the site at the corner of Evart Street and Bright Seat. So there's kind of a lot of information on the slide, but what I wanted to put up is the types of units that we're building. I guess the most significant thing here is that the stacked apartment buildings, similar to what was in phase one. They're almost identical. Pieces of them shift around, but they'll look very much like they were built at the exact same time as phase one. And within the 4% project, there are 60 of those units. And within the 9% project, there are 44 of those units. So a total of 104 remaining stacked family units. And then the walk-up breezeway building on the southeast corner of the site is the additional 54 units. And that building actually contains 20 market rate units as well, whereas the remainder of all the other units in both projects of phase three are affordable. Sorry. So this is what's going on at the site. If you haven't been by lately or haven't driven through, there's the majority of the phase three site and the remainder of the site that's unbuilt has been mass graded, stabilized. They've been planting grass to kind of keep it where it is until we're ready to start building. And you can see the senior building is there as well. So just real quickly, these are elevations from phase three. As I mentioned, they're extremely similar to what we built in phase one on both the 4% and the 9% side. And then this is the walk-up building that's going to be located on the corner of Bright Seat and Eve Arts. The 54 unit building that contains some market rate units as well. And some more examples of elevations for the 9% stacked buildings. As I mentioned, the phase three 4% project will also include the remaining amenities to be built on the southern end of the clubhouse. That includes a lap pool, a kids pool, and an athletic surface that will go along with the existing patio and the existing playground that were built in phase one. Amenities, these are very nice units. This is a very nice project. Units will have a lot to offer, including high-speed internet, in-unit washer dryers for all units, luxury vinyl flooring and ceramic tile flooring. The buildings will achieve National Green Building Standard certifications, and the 9% project will receive a Zero Energy Ready Home certification as well. Both projects will be fully Energy Star compliant, and we will include alternative energy in the form of solar panels on the 9%. That's something we committed to in our application to the state, and we are planning and hoping to include those on the 4% as well, because they're certainly very beneficial to these projects. Once again, there's a lot of information here, but I just want to point out overall schedule. The applications have been submitted and awarded. We received our reservation for the 9% credits in March. We've been working on various submissions to the county thus far. The big one right now is the detailed site plan that is in and under review with Park and Planning. We're hoping that comes out and is received preliminary approval and in the next couple weeks. Which will take us through the planning board process, at least for the walk-up building on the corner of Eve Arts and Bright Seat, because that building has not yet been to planning board, whereas the remainder of the site has and will undergo a staff evaluation for the approval of the detailed site plan. We're hoping that detailed site plan can get certified sometime early next year. That will feed into our record plat and our grading permit. And finally, we're hoping to get building permits Q3 of 2022, so about a year from now, and close and start construction. The 9% will have an 11-month duration, and the 4% will have a 17-month duration because it's a much larger project.
So with Pat, I'll just jump in on this. I just want to clarify one quick thing, and then obviously we'll open up the floor to any questions. When we talk about 9% and 4%, in our world, we know, what that means. It really just refers to a different type of housing tax credit. So the smaller phase has 9% credits, which are competitive, and how we were able to package this up as a twin means that the 4%, which, as the name implies, leverages sort of less equity into the project. And so that's the reason why they have to be kind of coupled together, because it allows both phases to move forward concurrently, if that makes sense. But so this slide highlights roughly the existing site conditions from an aerial standpoint and shows the approximate outlines of the homeownership phases. And so I'm going to talk briefly about where we are with that. So it's taken, and I will say, COVID and the economic sort of impacts of that and the recession, I would say, kind of slowed us down in terms of the progress that we were able to make with the homeownership phase in the last year or so. But the good news is, with the Redevelopment Authority, we now have an agreement in place with the national home builder, and that is NV Ryan, who RDA has worked successfully with over at the Suitland redevelopment. And so NVR is starting to get their gears in motion to make updates to the plans as it relates to the architecture that they're proposing and things like that. So we're really excited about that. Again, Pat laid out the overall schedule for the rental phases. The goal is while we're moving forward with the rental phases, to move forward with the site design for this whole portion of the site, give or take, that's on the left side under phase 4. It's basically dirt at this point. It's been mass graded, but we still have to install roadways, utilities, all of that stuff to kind of support the home ownership component, and all of that stuff has to be designed and approved first. So we're going to work on getting through that design and approval process basically at the same time as rental phase 3, so that the site work for the home ownership component can begin next year, and then the home builder would kind of come behind the site work, if that makes sense, on a sort of almost a lot by lot basis. And so hopefully the goal is to start seeing some of those homes getting into vertical construction latter half of next year. We're still kind of, as you can tell, refining that schedule a little bit. But the big piece is that we have a home builder on board for most of it. And that is kind of where things stand in terms of status and schedule. I think the next slide just has a couple sample images of some townhouse product that NVR has done elsewhere. And like I said, they're sort of tweaking their designs right now, but most likely it would be a similar type and look to what we're seeing here. I apologize, this image isn't great quality, but we're pleased about the capacity, the experience, and the track record of somebody like NV Ryan to come in and do a really nice job and deliver not only for the project but for the community as a whole. Because I think that was going back to our conversations with the city and the county back to 2015. At the end of the day, to see homeowners living there and not just renters in place of the former Glenarden Apartments, I think that's a really big step. So we're very excited that piece is moving forward as well. So with that, I think we're gonna kind of wrap up, but we want to make sure there was enough time for any questions, and goes without saying, but we're available to come back in front of city council as we move forward in the process. I think I will say for myself personally, we'd commit to doing a better job. I think, having been, I think it's been 2 years again since we've been in front of city council, so we'd like to do a better job of that going forward. But with that said, any questions that you all have, we'd be happy to try to answer those.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Bateman. Let's first open the questions to council and then to citizens. Mr. Herring, I think I heard you. I can't.
Yes,
see.
Gentlemen, a question on phase 4 on EVARTS. Are the townhomes going to be along EVARTS, or are they going to be along the back end?
Both actually, Pat.
Both,
Yeah, exactly.
okay.
If you can, Pat, if you can go back to that slide that has the illustrated site plan underneath it. you can basically tell from this, but so rental phase 3 includes the southeast corner of the site that kind of turns the corner from Bright Seat to Evarts.
Right.
But most of Evart Street is going to be single family townhomes facing it, and then that new road will be built, and townhomes facing that new road leading up to Hamlin Street.
And they won't be the 2/2s. Or they will?
No, those are side by side townhouses.
Okay.
So I would say somewhat similar to what's across the street north side of Hamlin Street.
Oh, okay, yeah. Also, so lot 1A is going to be what, single family homes, or there's going to be townhomes also, right?
Yes, that's also part of what NB Ryan's going to be building out.
Oh, okay, so the single families are along the back end.
Yeah, so they'll be facing Hamlin Street. So it's phase 1A facing Hamlin Street,
Right.
and kind of the western portion of the site,
Right.
and then the southern portion facing Evarts.
Okay. You said the DSP has been submitted to Park and Planning?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think Pat alluded to this, but more or less, again, not much is changing on the detailed site plan.
Right.
What has been approved through the previous 2 phases. It's really, you see on this view, the apartment building in the southeast corner, that was effectively a placeholder, hadn't been designed. And so we have to show the detail on that for what we're now building in phase 3.
Okay, so that you just circled, that's going to be apartments there?
Yes. And it was
Okay.
always slated to be apartments. It just hadn't been really designed yet.
Right. Because I know originally we were talking about retail, but it ended up becoming apartments. Another question. So when did you submit the detailed site plan or to Park and Planning?
I think that was accepted, what, a couple weeks ago, Pat?
It was submitted in early June, and it underwent the 30-day review, and then we just received some comments, which we're currently addressing, and it'll undergo another review, which should take 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, because I mean, because the city should have had some notice on that being submitted. I know as a council member, I haven't seen anything from anyone on that being submitted to the county. Requesting comments, on it. And that's an internal issue there.
Yeah, that was our understanding as well, is that I know in phase 1 and probably in phase 2, anytime the DSP goes to planning board, Park and Planning, that it would be sent automatically to city council.
Right, and the city council hadn't seen anything, so I need to follow up on that.
It will be released once it goes back in, and they review it again. It will then be released out to city council, the local, to county council to some capacity. So
right.
So
it has not actually been accepted yet by Park and Planning.
Got it.
Okay, because it still has to go before the district board, right?
Yes, yeah, the planning board will occur in probably September or October.
Okay. Now you said on the home builder is Ryan.
Yes.
You just said they're going to do a lot by lot build.
Well, so I probably misstated that. They, generally speaking, they'll look at what you would call a string of basically 5 lots that are contiguous. So they're going to kind of break them off in 5 lot chunks, if that makes sense.
Okay. So they're not committed to doing everything. Just
no. I'm sorry. That when I talk about sequencing, that's really just construction sequencing.
Right. I understand that, but
yeah. So they're under contract to do 77 out of the 97 homes, and then the 20 along Evart Street we're in the process of trying to identify a county, hopefully county-based, hopefully MBE home builder.
Okay, so there's going to be 2 different home builders for the home ownership phase.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And we'll follow up on our DSP and find out why we didn't get it, because we should have been able to review it and give some comments if we had any. All right. Thank you.
Sure, of course. And just to add to that, it may be that we don't have some of the dates exactly correct, but what we can do after this meeting is check in with our land use council and confirm. I would think it should still be coming to city council. So if we can try to track that down. We'll get back to you with what we understand the timing to be with a little bit more clarity.
And usually the way it works is once it's submitted to park and plan, and we are supposed to automatically be notified.
Right.
And it's supposed to come to the city. And you know, in case we have any comments or anything, I mean, not that we probably won't, but you know, we still have a right to review it to find out what's what and if it's in the best interest of the city, and if it's going the way that you know we want it to go. So,
100%.
all right, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Council President? Oh,
Councilwoman Gill.
I was going to ask a few questions, but I think Councilwoman Fareed just had raised her hand, so I can have her go first if need be.
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't, because it's on presentation mode. I didn't see everyone, but
No,
I just,
that's
Do you
fine. Thank
wanna-
you. And so wanted to ask, so number one, thank you so much to Team Penrose for this wonderful presentation. Some of my questions are going to be more guided towards the resident side, because I know that there are a lot of citizens who are on this call, and there are some areas in the city that would be prime for redevelopment if we could ever do it. So I know that in the very beginning, Patrick and Pat, one of you showed the different partners as far as this project. So there's Shabak, I see them down there. But as far as who owns the project itself, is it joint ownership, or is there
Yes.
one entity?
So when I say partners, that's literally what I mean when we say that. So the team that we put up, basically, we responded to the request for proposals that RDA put out. I think at this point it was 2014 somehow. I like to joke that I was in high school then, but that's not true. So that's the team that we presented with and were selected based on. But yes, Penrose, the Redevelopment Authority, B&W, Shabak each have percentage ownership across all phases of the redevelopment. So it really is a true public-private partnership. Gotcha.
And I know that, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I know for low-income housing tax credits, which has been referenced several times for its involvement in the project, that it after 30 years, right, that it kind of transitions out, right, as far as the investment. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Patrick.
I inadvertently hit the mute button there. So there's a what's called a compliance period for the first 15 years, and then there's a 25-year period after that,
right,
where there's what's called the extended use period. So it's a total of 40 years where the affordability restrictions stay on the book, so to speak. Okay,
and so the reason why I asked is why I asked my prior question, and then this one is I'm always thinking ahead, like, okay, how, and it's probably way too early to think about it, but I'm thinking about the affordability aspect of it after, the compliance period. So hence why I asked that, and I know that there are different ways.
Right. Yeah, there are different ways. It's interesting. The county's Department of Housing Community Development right now is actively engaged in trying to exercise the right of first refusal that it has in a lot of cases, where some of these existing affordable properties that may have, if they have a tax abatement or county funds or anything like that, they have to give the county right of first refusal. So they're actively trying to navigate that. As for what happens in 40 years, that's a tough one, obviously. But I will say from our experience, the projects that we have developed, for the most part, we kind of stay involved. And we actually have a couple examples right now in Baltimore, for instance, that were developed 15 years ago. We're going through that process of, recapitalizing, renovating, and things like that, but they're by and large staying affordable. So it's tough to project out 40 years, but I hope for now that answers your question.
It does, and I literally have probably 1.5 emphasis on the half question. So I know that you stated that it's almost been 3 years, right, from 2019 to 2020,
Yep.
2019 to 2022. So when,
Okay.
again, we're looking at the residents, right? Again, not looking at the displacement aspect of it, but I know when I looked at the numbers, it was 578 units at first, and then now it's 424. So there's a difference of 154-ish units. So what happened to those citizens? And for those who have been part of this almost 3-year journey,
Yep.
have there been like some form of temporary displacement, if that means like just so they can come back afterwards? So-
Right. So I'll try to answer that a couple. I think there are kind of a couple of dimensions of that question. Number one, the reduction in density was always expressed to us as a goal of the community, of the city, of the county, and was kind of a premise of the RFP that the redevelopment authority put out, because as we've heard throughout this process, having 578 units of subsidized housing in one place, it led to some issues that I think folks in the city know better than I do. And so part of the plan was to figure out a way to kind of diversify it a little bit, bring in housing that meets different income levels and different tenures, so renter and home ownership. So I just to recap, that's not Penrose. That's really been the plan from day one, is to figure out how to master plan it and really build a neighborhood in place of what was just apartments previously. But so in terms of relocation, part of the requirement of the master developer agreement with the RDA has been at each phase, we send a mailing out to the previous residents that lived at the Glenarden Apartments. I couldn't say that it's every single person, because there was a process where we went through in sort of coordination with the RDA, do a mailing. People that responded to that who said, yes, I'd be interested potentially in coming back here, they're then kept on a list. Phase 1, phase 2 in each case, and then phase 3 will be no different. We'll send a mailing back out to those people so that if they have an interest, whether it be in a rental home or home ownership, and by the way, that information will be conveyed over the home builder as well, so that at least they'd have that opportunity. As far as the relocation itself is concerned, that all happened before we got involved. So I'd have to check my timeline. I think before RDA put the RFP out, they handled relocation of all the previous residents, and then demolition of the buildings, and then kind of put the RFP out in concert with HUD. So hopefully that answers the question.
It does, and thank you for that. And I think you were in high school, as you said, when you did that, so that's fine.
I will say it was a couple kids ago, let's say that, for me.
Councilman Fareed?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Bateman, for your presentation. It was very helpful to hear more details about this project that you can see when you drive along Bright Seat Road. So thank you for that.
Yep.
I do have a couple of questions about the affordability of the housing. I wasn't exactly sure if the affordable units were only rental units, or if the home ownership units were also part of the affordable program.
It kind of, that's a good question. It means different things. So within the low income housing tax credit program, affordability has a specific definition. So we did talk about affordability within the rental component. Within the home ownership component, I have to double check this. I believe it's roughly 20% of the homes are going to be affordable up to 120% of area median income. So I would probably call that more like workforce as opposed to affordable. But again, that was a goal that was articulated by the redevelopment authority, so that on the home ownership side as well, there's kind of a gradation of opportunities, if you will, based on people's income, and making sure that as wide a band of households are able to participate in that opportunity.
Okay.
And briefly, the other councilwoman, I'm sorry, asked a question about how long that affordability stays in place. For the home ownership component, it's a 10-year restriction.
Okay. So my follow-up question would be, what exactly is the affordability? So when you say up to 120% of the median, what does that mean? That they will qualify for like 0% down payment, or will the cost of the home be subsidized?
So it would be priced based, and I don't have the in front of me what that actual household income is. We could get back to you on that if you wish, but the price of the home would actually be set so that the household of, I think it's household, I'm sorry, I'm not explaining as well, a household of 4 based on that area median income level as determined by HUD would be able to afford the mortgage payment based on that purchase price, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So,
Are
and
you,
that's already built in, and there, it's not necessarily subsidized, but separate from that, I believe that there are programs within the county and that the RDA also participates in that would provide, you know, first-time home buyer assistance and things like that.
okay, great. Thank you. That was going to be my next question about how or whether or not there were any lenders who were on board to provide that those mortgages at favorable rates, perhaps to people who have, you know, rough credit histories, but are really trying to build that back up, things like that. I think that type of thing is very important in terms of affordability. It's not just about, you know, what the income is. And I say that as someone who, you know, this is how I bought my first home, right? Through affordable housing. So it's very near and dear to my heart. And I think it's important in building generational wealth that people have access to affordable income. So my last question is around the preference. Is there a preference given to people who were in the apartments prior to? So I know you're sending out the mailing, but does that give them priority over others?
That is I think that's a tough question. Priority and preference. I think technically yes, but it again is based on the sort of subset of people who indicated that they'd be interested in coming back. So and again, phase 1, phase 2, and then again in phase 3, we'll go back out to that list of people. And they would be, I believe, we'll double check this so I don't give you the wrong answer, but yes, I believe that they would have a preference over anybody else who comes in to apply. I guess the asterisk sort of is that they would have to be you know, income eligible otherwise for, let's say, if it's a low income housing tax credit unit. But you know, in the case of phase 3, given that we've got a range of apartment units that meet all different income levels up to, you know, from 30% AMI up to market rate, I would think there would be an opportunity if people are interested in coming back to find kind of the right fit. But let's get, if we can get back to you with a more specific answer on the preference question, we can do that.
Okay, and just add to that preference question whether or not there's a preference for current residents of Glen Arden.
So we have been asked that question before. We are not able to do that. And that is a function of how the state tax credit program works, as well as how, you know, in the case of if there's a voucher, for instance, it's not really legally possible to provide to put in place a location or sort of geographic based preference in the case of this type of housing. So that said, I mean, we can focus and we do focus marketing activities and advertising to make sure that people locally within the city of Glen Arden have every opportunity and are aware. It's just that legally you kind of can't put them in line over others, if that makes sense.
Okay, so then there's no designated number of units. And I'm asking because you're saying it's illegal or not legal, and maybe that's in Maryland. Again, back to my own experience, I was able to get preference because a certain number of, you know, units were put aside for people who, I'm from Harlem, from people who live in Harlem. So that's what I was hoping would happen, so that at least, you know, people in the community would have the opportunity to purchase before others. So
I think that's one thing that we could probably provide some additional detail on, because there's sort of a compliance side of the whole low income housing tax credit. So we can try to flesh that out a little bit. But you know, the layer, so to speak, with the returning residents, that was very specifically a HUD requirement. And so that is something that we are required to do. Then I think there was another question in there that I was what I was gonna say is on the home ownership side, I can try to connect with the home builder NVR and see whether it be they come in front of the city council or provide some information about how they approach that issue with first-time home buyers, what programs they can connect with and things like that. I'm more than happy to follow up on that with them.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Mr. President.
Councilman Harry?
Yeah, just a follow up. Mr. Stewart or Mr. Bateman, will the builder be coming before the council with a design, or are you designing the homes that will be built for the single family homes?
I'm sorry, Councilman Herring. I just had a little visitor interrupted me for a moment. I think I apologize. Your question, I believe, was about the design of the units. So for the home ownership phase, NVR, my understanding is basically has an in-house architect, and they'll probably make adjustments here or there, but I think, the image that we put up there that's going to be, I think, similar to how they would approach the kind of the look and type of the buildings for Glenarden. I know in some cases they'll make adjustments depending on kind of the context. I know it's over at Suitland, they're doing a little bit different of a product just based on I think sort of local considerations and preferences, things like that. But hopefully that answers the.
Yeah, and just to follow up on Councilwoman Guillaume's question, actually all the homeowners, all the residents that were in Glenarden Apartments were actually given housing vouchers for anywhere, HUD vouchers for anywhere in the country that they wanted to move to. So that's how they addressed that issue. Also, Mr. Bateman or one of you two can answer. I had a number of residents come to me and ask, they can't get in touch with anybody to rent units over there. It's like either the office is closed or no one's there. And, I tell them to call the Baltimore office, but is anybody manning the rental office over there?
Yes, the staff hours, we'd have to double check and get back to you, but yes, there are people staffing the office.
Okay, because I know a number of people say they either don't answer the phone or they get there and there's no one there. So if you could send that information over to us, that'd be great, so we can share that with our residents and other persons who are interested in a unit over there.
Okay, absolutely.
All
and Pat, we should also follow up with a brochure, one pager that has a link, and just sometimes it's not clear, who to call and where to go, but we can send that information over if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions from citizens? Okay. Do not see any hands up. All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Bateman, thank you so much for joining our meeting and giving us an update on the project.
Our pleasure.
Yeah,
Nice to see
thank you for having
everybody.
us.
Yeah, and thanks for taking the time out to allow us to do this update.
Okay. You guys have a good night.
You too. Thanks very much.
Take care. Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay. Now for the next item on the agenda. So going back, Councilman Herring suggestion or request that citizens' comments be added to the end of the meeting as opposed to in the budget section. So I've read the council rules as an order of guiding principles, but I also know that the council can vote to change things up as we just did, because we just had Penrose make a presentation. We opened up questions for the council and we opened up questions for the citizens. So though we do in the council rules have an order of business, we can vote to rearrange that order. So I will take, well, it really isn't that big of a deal, but you know, out of respect for Mr. Herring's objection, I'll just hold a consensus on whether we want to have citizen comments now or hold them to the end. A consensus, well, I can just do one or the other. Yeah, consensus to have comments after each section or hold it to the end. It is your option, Councilwoman Jones.
Pass.
Councilwoman Guillaume.
I'd like to pass as well.
Councilwoman Fareed.
I never pass. No, I think that it's more relevant to have citizens' comments after each topic, particularly if there are a number of topics to be addressed. As an example, we had the gentleman from Penrose present. If there was if the citizens only had opportunity to present at the end, that would really mean that those gentlemen would need to stay for the whole entire meeting before those questions could be addressed, or we would have to follow up. So I think that, and even for the citizens' purposes of just kind of, if there was a particular topic that they wanted to speak on, they don't have to wait until the end of the meeting to do that. They can kind of talk about it at the point in which we're discussing it and when it's relevant. So my consensus is to have them say it after
Each topic.
Mhm.
Councilman Hairston.
I would say they can hold till the end.
Okay. Councilman Herring.
Again, I think they should hold it till the end. Normally in this situation, that the presenters that came on board, we would hold a special public meeting for them so that citizens can come and ask questions, basically a public hearing. That's what we should have done. That way we could have prepared the citizens to come, to know who's going to be here, to get information, to be able to ask questions and find out what's going on. To spring it on them like this last minute, of course, they're not going to be able to ask any questions. They weren't prepared for the presentation to be held tonight because it's a special regular meeting. So yes, I think we need to hold them to the end.
Okay. And the presentation by Penrose was in the minutes that were sent out last week. So if citizens were on the website, they would have been able to know that there was going to be a presentation by Penrose on the redevelopment project. So citizens were informed. Councilwoman Ferguson.
I'm going to abstain.
I don't have it really doesn't matter to me. I like it after every topic. So I'll say topic as well. Councilwoman Jones.
Well, when I look at this, being on the council in the beginning and how things were done, things are changing. I think issues as important as the budget and different things. I think citizens should be able to engage the council during the meeting so they can really be engaged and find out what's going on and see what's going on. I understand that there's an agenda that's sent out. I understand that there's information when we have information, whereas when we did the presentation for the Penrose project, they didn't send us any information to send for ourselves, except the information that our former council persons already had. So we didn't have any information to give the citizens. But when they come back after seeing this presentation, then citizens will be prepared. But I think that I don't have any issue with engaging citizens and listening to their opinion, their thoughts concerning what's going on in their city that they pay taxes for. So my answer is yes.
Topic or end? Topic? After
Pardon?
each topic?
After each topic, if necessary.
Okay. Councilwoman Guillaume.
So I passed initially because, similar to you, Council President Curtis, it really doesn't make a difference to me. But if we're doing consensus this evening, let's just go ahead and do it by topic, but
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah. And just for clarity, I only did it for ease for the citizens. So if citizens do have a issue with speaking up to every topic, if it looks like it's prolonging our meeting, then I'm all for having it at the end. To Councilman Terrence's point in the rules, it does say the end. So my only objective was to give citizens the opportunity to speak after each topic, so we wouldn't get so far past a topic that someone forgot about it. So so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 to have citizens comments after each topic, and that is the consensus. So we will have citizen comments after each topic. Next on the agenda is to an emergency ordinance to adopt the budget. As noted last meeting that we would post a budget. I would like to note for citizens that there was an amendment just to remove the ARPA funds from the operating budget and put it to the special fund because that's where it should be. And to give us an opportunity to have an actual robust plan in place to decide what we're going to do with those funds. And the charter does allow for us to make an amendment to the budget after its adoption if there are funds in the budget to do so. And then the only other change was there was a small calculation error in the enterprise salaries that inflate the salaries by I think $100 or $200 per person, and that was reduced. So the surplus for the enterprise
Close this up. He about to be finished. Hold this. I got hold this up. Hold your brother.
gold room.
This meeting long. Oh,
the surplus for the enterprise gold room went from $50 to $901. So those were the two changes. So if there are any citizens' comments on the budget before we that you want us to hear before we actually vote to adopt the FY22 budget, here's your opportunity to do so. And I'll ask
Point of order, Mr. President.
Councilman Herron.
You need to bring that to the floor. It's not even to the floor for discussion yet.
meeting. He does it every meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
You need to bring it to the floor. It still hasn't come to the floor yet. You gotta get a motion in a second to bring it to the floor before we can start discussion.
Okay, a motion to bring a motion to bring the legislation to the floor.
Yes, because we're gonna discuss it, but we haven't brought it to the floor yet.
Okay, motion to bring this legislation to the floor.
Second.
I didn't have it first, but I'll count you. Okay. I take it as the order of discussion, Mr. Herron, Councilman Herron?
Yes, I mean, but you still gotta go for the vote. I mean, vote to bring it on to the floor. I'm sorry, it is on the floor. Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so it's open for citizens' comments. And so I saw former Mayor Carter's hand. Mrs. Carter.
Oh, good evening, council members and citizens. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak. I went over this budget, and I have just some general questions that I don't understand. On page 7 to the treasurer, according to this budget, we're spending, what is it, $2,180,000 is the expenditure. But what happens? Why is not the $496,000 that is being spent from the on that page 8. Let me explain it better. If you go to page 8, there's an expenditure that I'm not understanding, that we're not carrying in the budget. How much is our budget actually, are we actually spending? Because you're not talking about the expenditures at the end of the budget. After the end of the operating budget, there is an additional $200,000 that's being spent. That's, you're not you're not making the capital projects. There's $200,000 that's being spent on capital projects. Is that not part of city expenditure? So is the budget actually not like 7,192,679 if you add in the capital budgets? I mean, the capital projects. Or am I doing this wrong?
Mr. Stewart.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, we have to separate both the capital fund from the general fund. And yes, capital expenditure are a part of the spending that will be done. So I could not add those numbers together, but it is understood that capital expenditures and the general expenditures for the city are payments that will be made throughout the year. So yes, they are, but we would not show them as total.
No, I understand they wouldn't be together,
Yes.
you know, that they're separated properly, but I'm just saying that that is an expenditure other than from the general funds. We are expending over $7 million this year, anticipated.
In this case, it's gonna be because our expenditure. Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. My next comment is to the council. Please, before you vote to pass this budget, please consider one thing with our goal room, that you close it down because it's costing the city money. The city is subsidizing, based on the budget that's been prepared, the net income for the goal room is $901 after expenditures, $901 in a year. And that is not even considering that the city is paying for the utilities in that room. It is costing the city hundreds of dollars to run that gold room. Doesn't make any sense. You have to find a better way to run it, or you need to vote to close it down. Thank you.
Thank you for Mayor Carter. Ms. Smallwood, you're on mute.
I got a question. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is, as I was looking at the budget, it still look like the gold room is carrying a deficit. Is that correct?
According to the budget, no, it's $901 surplus.
It's a
901.
So y'all took the money from the operating expense and balanced the budget with the government budget with?
No.
How did y'all balance?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
How did y'all balance the enterprise fund to make it have a surplus of $901?
There are several things that were adjusted. Mr. Stewart, I'll let you carry it away on this one.
Thanks for that question, Ms. Smallwood. What happened here is that we anticipate that the Go Room should be able to generate 138.5 or 138,500 throughout the year. We have actually tried to cut back on some staffing to help with the with us meeting at least a break even with the enterprise fund, the goal room, and we were able to save even a little more. But we have to do a lot more promotion and a lot more work to ensure that we actually make this this fun. So thanks for the question. And none of the expenses are subsidized by expenses in the general fund. But I should say that the general fund continue to pay some of these expenses in a cash flow sense. In other words, most of the expenses are paid through the general fund and it becomes a due to general fund from the goal room. So that is something that we have to look into. We have to work very hard to get the goal room generating these funds so that it can sustain itself, and not only sustain itself, but be able to pay off those due to general funds that they have owing. So yes, thanks for that question.
And I got one more question. How did y'all manage to, how much money did y'all pull out of the savings to balance this budget with, the overall budget?
Please. To the budget. The budget
Mr. Stewart,
stands, yes.
You froze for a second. Can you start over, please?
Okay, sorry. Ms. Smallwood, thanks again for that question, but I must explain that the budget is a document that speaks about the current transactions that will be run throughout the year. It is not taken from savings or from other reserves. It is telling you what we expect to be earning and what we expect to be spending and what we think our deficit or surplus would be. Does that help?
No, because you didn't answer the question I'm looking, the answer I'm looking for. I know money was pulled from the general fund to offset some of the new projects that they are trying to implement. And I'm trying to find out exactly how much money that came out of our savings that's going to offset some of these projects that they're trying to do.
Can you be a little bit more specific about what projects you're referring to?
Well, I know there's a project coming up that y'all wanted to give out $10,000 for $10,000 for, see if the city could qualify for the Maryland State grant. I think y'all had pulled money for different types of positions that y'all want to do and to increase positions and increase salaries. So I'm just trying to find out where y'all pulling this money from, how much money was pulled for y'all to do this.
That the Maryland retirement fund, we did not pull any money to fund that. That's still a discussion. Actually, we discussed about staying. So still more research needs to be done on that. But you know, there's nothing being pulled for any special projects that I know of, Mr. Stewart, and you correct me if I'm wrong.
If you look on
Um,
page 7 under general funds, it says you're pulling $496,000 from the general fund. That's what the new budget says on page 7. The
Mr. Stewart,
budget that's on the website. On page 7, it says from general fund, $496,000. Under the capital projects, revenue, on page 7, capital projects under revenue, $496,000 from general fund. I think that's the figure Ms. Smallwood is making reference to.
You're exactly right.
I must say that Mayor Carter is a constant amount that I saw being used to pay for capital expenditures. So yes, to pay for some of the capital expenditures, we do use funds from the prior year surpluses that have been generated.
Okay, but
So
that's
if
how
that's
we're meeting our budget.
capital,
is
that's how
taking- That's how
that's
we're
how,
meeting,
hold
our
on, let her
total
finish.
budget is taking $496,000 from our general fund is where all our money is. Right?
yes, and
So
I agree.
that's the figure that Ms. Smallwood is making reference to. That's all I'm saying is, it says from the general fund, $496,000 on page 7 of the capital projects.
Yes. So let me start, and Mr. Stewart, you can back me up on this if I'm correct or incorrect. So that's separate from the operating budget. So the operating budget is self-sufficient, but whenever we want to go into additional expenses like capital outlays, then that would cause us to go into our surplus, because these are expenses that go outside of what it takes to run the government.
Run the city.
Yeah.
Within a
So
year.
if we wanted a street repaired, well, we wouldn't be able to afford that in a typical operating budget. We already have that set, and that's why the capital outlays are separated
It's separate.
from the operating. So yes, the surplus that we've accumulated over time is supplementing capital outlays, but it is not supplementing what it will take to run the city. Mr. Stewart?
That's right. That's right.
Exactly, that is exactly. And if you understand, capital expenditures normally are dealing with us using these capital infrastructure for more than a year. It can be for 3 years, it can be 4 years, it can be 10 years. So these funds must come from our surpluses as we prepare for future usage.
Okay. Thank you for Mayor Carter and Ms. Smallwood. Are there any other questions from the citizens as it relates to the adoption of the FY22 budget? I will search. I do not see any hands, and so.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Curtis.
Oh, Ms. Wilson.
Yes. On last week, there was a question raised about the funds that the grant for the elevator. And the last thing I remember you saying was that you're going to look into that. So what was the outcome of your research on it? And because I didn't hear anyone say anything about that tonight.
Yeah, it's my understanding we still haven't been able to recover that information. What we're referencing is 15 years old, and to be able to turn that information that we just don't have around in a week, we weren't able to find anything on it. And Mr. Stewart, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one as well. But unfortunately, it's just so old. I mean, there's no record of it unless, you know, Ms. Wilson, I know you were part of the prior council, unless you have some information regarding it that you could share. But outside of that, we don't have anything.
So, okay, with that being said, so how can you vote on a budget which would be excluding the money that was set there for the elevator, and you're using it for something else? How can you vote on a budget to do that if if the research hasn't been done?
Well, Ms. Wilson, as I said in the beginning, I'm sorry, were you finished?
I said yes.
Okay. As I said at the beginning, well, I think it's going to be important for us to be patient and strategic with a few things. We just don't have the information to include that in a budget and to, you know, to start working on anything. But the charter does give us the ability to amend the budget after we adopt it, if we have revenues to do so. So if we do come across that information, then in this fiscal year, we can then come together as a council and vote to add those expenditures in the budget, should there be some revenue to pay for those expenditures.
So, okay, my understanding of what you're saying is that the money will not be put back there for the elevator. And in the future, if you have any money, let me rephrase that. So the money that was out there for the elevator will be used elsewhere. And if in the future, if you have any money, then you will amend the budget to put it toward the elevator. Am I understanding you clearly?
No, ma'am. We need to figure out where the money is for the elevator. This isn't some revenue that we have and we're going to spend somewhere else. That's not the case at all. We're still trying to research where this money is, documentation that we actually have this revenue. And if we're able to find it, then we'll spend that money that's allocated for that specific purpose to the elevator. I will vote on it and amend it to the budget. Right now, we do not have any information on, you know, where the money is, if it was spent all the way, if it wasn't spent all the way. We need more information to go on for that. But that's not a good enough reason to hold up our FY22 budget, given the fact that we can include it in our FY22 budget after we adopt it by vote of the council.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other citizens' comments before we vote to accept the on the emergency ordinance?
I think my hand is up, Mr. Curtis.
No, it wasn't Ms. Smallwood, but you've had a couple turns already, and we're trying to move through the agenda.
Okay,
so,
but I still have a question. You allow other people to speak frequently, and I should get the same courtesy. And my question is in reference to the elevator. Well,
yes,
my statement is in reference to the elevator. There is document.
Go ahead.
There is documentation about the elevator. It should be in the city manager's office as in the council's office. So there is documentation about that elevator, and I believe that elevator money was grant money. So I think that money should be put back in the budget.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smallwood. If this documentation was, in fact, in the city manager's office for the past 15 years, then this should have been acted on in the past 15 years, and it wasn't. We don't have that information right now, and we're not going to make a rush decision to do something that we're just not informed on. I appreciate that. We can go and we'll take a look at it, but we won't act on it until we actually are able to research the documentation and make an informed decision. But thank you, Ms. Smallwood.
Also needs to get the history about it, because it was acted on within those 15 years. So don't
Which-
make false statement. Thank you.
which is even more reason why we should be patient with this. Thank you, Ms. Smallwood. And with that, we can go to vote on the emergency ordinance unless I am out of order, Mr. Herring.
You need to get the motion to bring it to the floor as an emergency. You just brought it to the floor for comment.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the teamwork. A motion to bring this emergency ordinance to the floor as an emergency.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
okay. And I take it that we vote on it being an emergency. And I will call on first Ms. Jones.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Jones.
Councilwoman Jones.
Yes. Councilwoman Guillaume,
yes.
Councilwoman Fareed,
Yes.
Councilman Hairston,
Yes.
Councilman Herring,
No.
Councilwoman Ferguson,
Yes.
and Councilman Curtis is a yes. So there's 6 yeses, 1 no. All right. Well, I will bring this forth and read it, unless again I'm out of order. So Ms. Ferguson, I do take it that I can read the ordinance now, correct? Councilwoman Ferguson. I will share my screen so you can read along with
Were
me.
you, I didn't hear what you said, President.
I was just make sure I was sticking with the order that now we can read the emergency ordinance.
Oh, I probably would have read it first, but okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so since this is an emergency ordinance to adopt the FY22 budget, City of Glenarden 2021 legislation, an emergency ordinance for the purpose of adopting the city's FY22 budget, whereas the City of Glenarden, Maryland, here and thereafter the city is a municipality organized under the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution and as defined by the Maryland Code Local Government Article 1-101, and whereas pursuant to the Maryland Code Local Government Article Section 5-202, the city may adopt ordinances to 1, assure the good government of the municipality and protect and preserve the municipality's rights, property, and privileges, whereas pursuant to Charter Section 60221 of the Charter, the City Council of Glenarden, hereinafter the council, has express power to extend municipal funds for any public purpose and to have general management and control of the finances of the city. And whereas Charter Section 308C and E respectively provide 1, that an emergency ordinance may be adopted at the same meeting it is introduced, and 2, may become effective on a date certain. And whereas Charter Section 807B provides that if the council fails to adopt the budget by the second Monday in June, the budget for the current fiscal year shall be deemed adopted for the ensuing fiscal year as if it had been enacted by ordinance until the council adopts a new budget. And now therefore be it enacted and ordained by the City Council of Glenarden, Maryland, sitting in special regular session this 21st day of July, 2021, that the FY22 budget for the City of Glenarden is as follows. It's basically the budget that we have presented over the past week with a surplus of $18,803 for operations. And all other sections of the budget, including capital funding for 1.1 million and capital expenditures for about $1 million, giving a total surplus for all government funds of $2,365,127, and a surplus for the enterprise fund at $901. Be it further resolved and ordained by the City Council of Glenarden that this emergency ordinance is and shall become effective upon the date the same date as passage. And now I will go to vote to, I'm sorry, Ms. Jones, did you want to say something? Councilwoman Jones. You're on mute.
I normally don't mute myself. I'm sorry, the ordinance number.
We have not given it an ordinance number, but this would, if you can help me out on that one.
Okay, I'd have to look in the council, look at the last ordinance. So the sponsor will be yourself?
Yes.
Okay, and will this be at the request of the administration?
This would be at the request of the council because the administration had already presented the budget and now it's in the council's hands.
Okay, and so the date of introduction will be today. All right. Okay, I just wanted to get some administrative things out of the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now we can vote on the emergency ordinance. So, Councilwoman Jones, I'll start with you to pass this emergency ordinance to adopt the FY22 budget.
Okay, there was just a couple of things, not necessarily to change the budget or anything, but things that I observed. I know the last meeting, couple of meetings ago, we discussed in the meeting that the Human Resource Director and Councilwoman Fareed were going to work on looking at salary updating. I hope that this is done, especially in looking at the police clerk's salary. It hasn't changed much. That really does need to be looked at. Also, in purchasing things, I kind of had an opportunity after we had a discussion to kind of eyeball some of the police officers as on my walks or when they were in the shopping center or wherever I saw them, look at their belts to see about those tasers. And it doesn't, I guess they both weapons are both black. So, and I know that there was an issue with tasers with another issue where the taser is normally yellow. So if that's something that in the budget that needs to be, I think they said they were going to buy tasers, but hopefully that's something that when we start purchasing stuff that we're cognizant of what we're purchasing so we won't have to do it twice. So those were a couple of observations that I made. Like I said, hopefully when Ms. Fareed and, Councilwoman Fareed and Ms. Schultz get together, they can look at the salaries and bring those up to speed. So my vote for the adopting this emergency budget. I know some of the things won't get done in this budget because it's due now, but then with the next budget coming up, we can kind of really look at things and make sure that they're done in decency and order. But my vote for the budget is yes.
On the board, Mr.
Do
President.
Councilman Ferguson.
We need to do a motion to adopt the budget.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We didn't do a motion. We did a motion to bring it forth as an emergency. We didn't do a motion to adopt the ordinance.
I'm sorry.
My apologies, Councilman Herring. We do have a motion to adopt the emergency ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Now, are we clear to vote?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Herring.
let me just say, I have quite a few issues with the whole process.
Mhm.
Like I said, I don't believe it was advertised correctly. On April 6th, we received an email from the executive assistant at that time submitting the budget to the council. It had a cover letter on it dated March 31st. On April 9th, we got another budget, which was different than the first budget, with a cover letter dated April 9th. May 18th, a budget was advertised. I'm not sure which one between those two. After it was advertised, we had our first, we received another budget on June 24th with a cover letter dated, I think it was June 26th, which had an additional $2 million in it, which was the ARP funds. Okay, we had our first meeting on the budget that the council could actually amend the budget on June 29th, which is completely out of line. Them budget changes that were in between April 6th and June 29th should not have happened. The budget we should have been working on is the one that was advertised, which is the one we did not work on. Another issue I have is the Veterans Memorial. I asked that money be increased in that budget line item. For some odd reason, that wasn't done. I'm not sure why. The lack of respect for the veterans in this community. I mean, a lot of them sacrificed for us. All of them have sacrificed for us. And if the council can get themselves $28,000 to go on a trip, I don't see why we couldn't have upped that budget to maintain our memorial. It's won 2 beautification awards, and we need to keep it keep it to that level of care. See, the PEG revenue is not being recognized correctly. When I look at it, the elevator, it's really bothering me about the elevator because once again, that is state money. Now, if the state comes in here and decides to say, which they had done before in other jurisdictions, and say, let me see the project that you're supposed to be working on, and you don't show that project, you're not getting any more grants from the state. That elevator is needed for people with disabilities to be able to get up there and get involved, get upstairs and participate in their government. Now, what the mayor said last week was very shallow and it's insensitive, because there's no unlocked door around City Hall that a person in a wheelchair can get into that building. You have to go around to the side door and ring a doorbell, which they probably cannot reach because it's not ADA accessible. Then they have to sit out there if it's raining, in the rain, and wait for somebody to come from the front of the building to the back of the building and open up a door, when they could get on the elevator, be upstairs in the lobby and get some assistance. I'm not understanding that, especially when I'm looking at a budget of capital projects that people just threw in here, not knowing, not having any information on the roads that they're going to pave, and and then you're going to show $180,000 surplus in the budget, and you won't take that money and stick it in there where the elevator should be. Now, as you said, if we have you got your super majority, you can amend the budget at any time. I would err on the side of caution. Put the money there for the elevator. If the state come in and say, where's the money at? You can say it's right here budgeted. Right now, you can't say that. And they're gonna say, well, where's the money? And I'm gonna say it's in the general fund, because that's exactly where it's sitting, because we got the check for that elevator.
Where is it?
It's Ms. Jones, you weren't on the council. But you
Point of order, Miss.
Yeah, you need to mute yourself. And then again, like they say, yeah, we pulled $650,000 from the savings to put in capital projects. So if you can pull $650,000 out of savings to put in a capital project for other projects that you don't have any plans or anything for, because there's nothing in here. All the projects I'm seeing in the capital project, these are all things that we would like to get, but there's nothing that we ever move forward on redoing the sidewalks, street paving, curbs, gutters, any of that stuff. So you can take money out of the general fund and put it in there for an elevator. You know, so my thing is, it needs to be done. Now, my issue is this. I hope council isn't doing this because the mayor said not to. That's what's really bothering me, because the mayor is supposed to represent the city. Mayor represents himself. Like I said, this is a project and something to help people with disabilities. That's very close to my heart. I have people who are disabled in my family, and I've seen the struggles that they have to do to get around and just to manipulate in everyday life. But for you to sit there and say, I'm not going to put an elevator in until we find this and we find that, I think it's very uncaring. I think it's very hard-hearted. So I'm gonna due to all of those reasons, I feel the process wasn't followed. I'm voting no on this budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Herring. Councilman Hairston.
My apologies. Could you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I just can I ask? I'm gonna ask a question before I vote. Is anybody like against the elevator being in the building, or anybody feel like that's not a good idea? Like it's the elevator business, because this was here before we got here. So I just wanted to ask a question.
Well, I'll answer first. No, I think that the accessibility for people who are disabled is very important. The issue that was brought forth was a grant to do so, which currently we don't have any information on. And so because the charter allows us to be able to adopt the budget and still research where this money is to be able to pay for an elevator, I think we can do both at the same time. I think that it's disingenuous for people to bring this forth now after so many years of an elevator not being in the building, and to put it forth now. I think it's disingenuous on some people's parts, but I agree with the premise that it is important, that it should be included. We just have to do the research to, one, find that money, include it, and then make a decision on how we implement going forward with the elevator. I think we could do both. But if any other council person wants to answer that, the floor is open for you to do so. Councilman Hairston, does that make sense, at least from where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't no like really big issue. I just feel like whatever the citizens need, we should get the citizens whatever it is that they need if it's accessible, if we're able to. So I just wanted to ask that just to make sure it wasn't just like, people being catty or someone not wanting to do it because of a particular reason. You understand what I'm saying? I just want to make sure that every decision that we make, we really making the greater good decision for the citizens that we have, and we not just being catty or we not just being petty amongst each other. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
No, I 100% agree, which is why we wanted to look into it, which is why we want to find a documentation. I appreciate Ms. Smallwood saying that the documentation is in the city manager's office. So Mr. Dean will take a look in the city manager's office so we can find that information and use the funds appropriately for the elevator.
Okay, Ms. Jones, was you about to speak? I seen your finger go up.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Curtis, with the president, and I'm just wanted to say it's an accountability issue. We have to be accountable for those funds that we say that we have. We need to be able to locate them and identify them and be able to let the city, the citizens know that we're accountable for this money. Of course, they're saying this was 15 years ago. I've looked through some of the things in the council office, and I haven't ran across anything that related to the elevator. So if any prior council members know where this information is in the council office and can identify it for me, I would be more than happy to pull it out. But I have not seen anything relating to an elevator. So no, it's not that I don't want the citizens, the city to have an elevator, but we have to be accountable and show that we received it, or if the money was already spent, or what portion of the money was spent. There's an accountability issue, and there's got to be, there's some documentation somewhere if this happened pertaining to this that someone can present. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, so is it a way that you guys can like place that in the budget until the funds are found, like off to the side, like, or that's something that y'all against too?
No, it takes more research to say, okay, well, where are we in the process? How much does this cost? Because we just can't put just anything in the budget right now. Right now, we're far behind in adopting the FY22 budget. And since we can adopt a budget and still research this issue and add it in this fiscal year, it gives us the flexibility to do both and not hold up the FY22 budget until we find this documentation or find the money.
Okay. All right. So all right, cool. I mean, I'm gonna vote yes, but I just ask respectfully if we can just make sure that we revisit it. You know what I mean? Like it just don't go unseen or just don't go unheard of again. If we can just tap back into this and just, figure it out. Not just like just sweeping under the rug and not revisit trying to get an elevator if it's gonna help our citizens and our seniors be able to, assess the building better. If that's cool, respectfully.
No, that's 100. I agree. Councilman Hairston and Councilwoman Jones, do you guys want to tag team that effort in researching this to find out where those funds are, the documentation around those funds, and make a presentation to the citizens about it? Councilman Hairston and Councilwoman Jones?
I have no issue with that.
Oh, I'm cool with that as well. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I ain't hear you say my name at first.
Oh, okay. All right. And so I've been using Mr. Dean as a resource, but I'm pretty sure Ms. Wilson, Ms. Smallwood, Councilman Herring, who has some historical context on that, be able to aid in the effort to get this documentation with the assistant Mr. Dean doing the accounting reconciliation and figuring out how much money we have left and how we can implement add that to the budget in FY22. Okay.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Fareed.
So I just would like to say that I'm glad that we have taken the effort to get this approved as soon as possible, knowing that this should have been done by June 30th. I do hope that in this upcoming year that we are more prudent in our approach and more timely, so that all of the necessary steps can be done. Citizens have ample time to ask their questions. We have ample time to kind of review and make adjustments as needed. But given the fact that this was not, adopted prior, I think we've made great efforts in the last few weeks to get this adopted. And so, yes, I will accept this budget.
Thank you. Councilwoman Guillaume.
I'd like to echo what Councilman Hairston originally said. And so I'll just go on record right now and say, yes, I'm voting yes to move forward with the budget. But I want to, again, what I was originally saying about Councilman Hairston is let's make sure that we do get to the bottom of where this missing grant, documentation is. I don't believe that once we approve this budget, that means that we stop seeking or searching, I should say, for the necessary documents. But the reason, especially why I am saying yes, is this process has been held up for way too long. I think that we are doing the community as a whole a disservice by keeping this on a continued agenda for months and months and months at a time. I understand also that there were various iterations of the budget that was presented. I can only speak to what was shown to me, what was advertised when I was not part of the council, and what I understand to be the case afterwards, which is when I believe City Manager George was here at the time, the mayor was out, if I'm not mistaken. But in any event, the budget continued to be amended. That's my understanding. And so it makes sense why we keep seeing different ones after the fact, because they continue to be amended. All that being said, let's move forward, approve this budget, and get on to other business, while also making sure that things that we're looking for, we still continue to look for them. So special thank you to Councilwoman Jones and Councilman Hairston for stepping up to the plate and saying that you guys will get to the bottom of this.
Thank you, Councilwoman Guillaume. Councilwoman Ferguson.
One thing I would like to add is, well, my vote is yes to pass the budget. However, I do want to, us to look into, amending, the area where, we can put some money in for the upkeep of the Veterans Memorial. I'm, in agreement with Councilman Herring that we should have some monies in there for the upkeep of that, memorial. So, once that's passed, we can go back in and try to, put some monies in that part. So my answer is yes to pass the budget.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ferguson. And my vote is yes. And we have funded the memorial to at the same level as it was when we won the beautification award. So I don't want the citizens to think that we have removed funding from that or anything like that. No, funding is there. If we could do more, I'm all ears to do more. And certainly with the surplus of $18,000, if we can find some money to further honor our veterans, then I'm all for it. So just want to let citizens know that we have not taken any money away from that. We have funded it at previous levels where we have won awards, as Councilman Herring has said, but it looks like Councilman Herring wants to do more, which is fine, and I'm in agreement with that as well. So and we can discuss that too. If Councilwoman Ferguson, you and Councilman Herring want to lead up that project to see how we could make the memorial even more better than it is now, that'll be great. And then you guys can present that to the citizens when we make a vote to adopt that into the budget. Is that fine with you, Councilwoman Ferguson?
That's fine. I can get with Councilman Herring. See what his ideas are. Yeah.
Councilman Herring?
Okay, I hear you. All right, I hear you.
All right. Thank you. It takes five. Sorry, Councilwoman Jones. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
After you've finished with the vote here, then I have something I need to say.
Okay. For our citizens, it takes 5 yeses to pass emergency ordinance. We have 6, so this emergency ordinance passed, and the FY22 budget is adopted by the council, and will be going to the mayor for signature. Ms. Jones?
I think we're also going to have to do a resolution for the constant yield rate, if I'm not mistaken. So
Because that's included. So for the, I know since we talked about this last week, for context, we took a consensus last week to have the yield at the 3471. What's 3481?
3418.
3418. Thank you. Just to inform the citizens, we are past that deadline to enact that constant yield. That yield was already put into effect, and it should have been in effect as of July the 1st. So there's a process by which we have to get back to the county with what our constant yield is going to be. And I believe we would have had to inform the county by June the 15th, but it goes into effect July the 1st. So for the citizens, you will get a tax bill at the old rate of 3571. Am I correct?
9.
no,
3.79.
3481.
Yeah, that's the new one. We're talking about the old rate, last year's rate, 3579.
Okay. 3579. So you will get a bill for the 3579, but we are working with the county since we had that consensus last week, to switch it to the 3481. We just are required to submit a letter to the county, and then it will go out to the citizen. It'll be approved by the county, then go out to the citizens with the amended tax
Mr.
document.
Mr. President,
Councilman Herring.
yes, actually, through the 0.3418 has automatically gone into effect. We are required by June 17th to have a hearing and to vote on whether we're going to take the constant yield tax rate of 0.3418, or if we're going to increase the taxes by the 0.3579. Since we didn't meet that deadline, state law requires the tax rate to automatically roll back to the constant yield tax rate of 0.3418. So that's already done. We just got to let the county know that it's 0.3418. The state has already done that, or 3.3481 or 0.3, whatever it is. Whatever the constant yield tax rate is.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Herring. So all that to say, your first bill will be on 3579.
No, it'll be 0.3418.
We've already got notice by the county that it will be 3579.
I've just got notice from the state that it'll be 0.3418. I've already reached out to the tax assessment office. He emailed me back. Same person that Mr. Stewart talked to, and he said it's a done deal. So if it is a point, I mean, we didn't have a public hearing on it.
So it is. We have informed to the 0.3481, but I talked to Cindy, the Assistant Director of Finance of that office. The bills already went out with 3579. If she was somehow mistaken and it has not gone out and the citizens get the 3481, great. But if not, I'm just bracing the citizens who are expecting a 3481. If they see a 3579, that is going to be corrected, because that is what the assistant director of that office informed us, that they could not take back what was already mailed, which was 3579. So either way, I think we're on the same page, Councilman Herring.
No, actually, we're not, because now if that went out, then we owe the citizens a rebate. And so we really need to get in touch with the state, because we should not have given that number to the county. We should have, because we passed the deadline and we did not advertise the tax increase. That's a tax increase. We violated state law by not advertising that we were going to raise the citizens' taxes. So we actually going to end up owing them a rebate. And I think the treasurer need to get in touch with the assessment office as soon as possible and let him know what happened.
He has been in contact with it.
Okay, you know what? Y'all do what you want to do, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm just trying to give you some advice. I know what's going to happen, but y'all want to sit there and argue. I'm just telling you right now, we just gave the citizens a tax increase without advertising it. We did not advertise a tax increase of 0.3579, which is against the law. So go ahead. The treasurer got everything under control. I'm just trying to give you some advice. We'll see where it falls at. All right, thanks.
Councilman Herring, I'm grateful for your advice, and I'm not arguing with you. I'm just letting citizens know, if they receive a tax bill like that, they will have a correcting letter saying that it's been corrected. Anything that they have paid will be a rebate in the mail, but it's just a correction. So if, like I said, if citizens get the 3481, great. But according to that office, they will not. They'll get 3579, which was an error on with however it happened. Don't want to go back and forth on that, but it is going to be corrected. That was the point. So I think we're all on the same page, is that it is going to be 3481. Councilwoman Ferguson.
No, I was just gonna ask that maybe Mr. Stewart could, give his analysis of what he was told. But if you,
Mr. Stewart, by all means.
Thank you for that. I was contacted by the county, the finance department of the county, and they explained that due to the time that we gave them the rate of 3481, they have already sent out billing for the 3579. They got the numbers from me, the 3481, and will be sending out bills for the 3481. They're asking that we just explain to and write to the citizen that the 3579 was an error, and they are pulling that back and will be putting forward a bill for 3481. I hope that clears everything up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Fareed, I saw your hand.
So Mr. Stewart explained it.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Council President, just a quick question. Why, or do we know why there was a delay in submitting whatever we needed to submit in a timely fashion to county?
So this should have been done a while ago. We are the new council, and we're just getting on board, and we're trying to catch up on some things that should have been done prior to us being seated. So the best we can do is get into office, figure out where we're behind, and try our best to catch the city up to where we need to be. The constant yield rate goes into effect July 1st. And so that's where we are.
Okay.
Councilman Jones?
This information was received into the finance office on in February. So it was probably something that was always sent to the prior treasurer. And
okay,
that because we received this document, and I got it from him on somewhere around it says February 14th, 2021 on it. So somewhere around there, that's when he received it.
Okay.
Thank you. And I don't want to just stay on this, but it's just unacceptable. I'll just put it out there, and I'll just mute myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Councilman Herring?
Just to follow up on it, the reason why we are so behind the 8 ball is because the treasurer was fired right before budget time. So that's why we are behind the 8 ball, because normally he would have already did any advertisements. He would have got in touch with the state. He would have did all that was needed to be done around April and have us ready to vote on it by the second Monday in June in order to be in time to meet the deadlines of the state, whichever direction we are going to go. We didn't have a treasurer in place. So that's what happens. You fall behind. So.
Thank you, Councilman Herring, for the additional context.
Mr. President, if you don't mind me chiming in here.
Mr. Stewart?
One of the main reasons why it was late, and I should say, was there was going to be a discussion on the constant yield rate on that day that we had the storm. If that was completed on that date, we would have had that information to pass on to the county, and this would not have happened. So it is more a matter of natural, we had a storm at 9:50 on that date that we were going to talk about the constant yield rate, but it was delayed by a week, I should say, and that week was what pushed us back. So it would have been done in time.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Councilwoman Fareed?
Yeah, I thank you for that, Mr. Stewart, but I just wanted to follow up, it definitely was a storm and we should have discussed the constant yield at that point, but I think the greater point is that this actually should have been handled months ago. So the fact that we had to even be discussing it a few weeks ago is, I think, part of the challenge that we need to make sure we overcome going forward so that we're doing things in a more timely manner.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. All right, that's it on that topic, and hopefully we can get through the Councilwoman Fareed. We'll go to your two things. Hopefully we get through that rather quickly.
Yes, I will try to be very quick on it. So I brought them up, these two topics, because I think they can be relevant
Oh, no,
for the
point of
budget.
order, madam. I mean, point of order, Mr. President. Excuse me, Ms.
Councilman Herring.
What about the ordinance for the stipend? That was supposed to be next on the agenda.
We can
And
talk about that.
discussion.
We can talk about that first as well. It didn't matter to me what order we took it in, but if you want to address that first,
I mean,
I'm
my thing
perfectly
is,
fine with that.
it was on the agenda. I'm
Yep.
sure. I'm not sure
That's-
what was going on with it. I mean, this is the context
I,
that I'm
I,
giving. So
I understand. Councilman Fareed, do you mind if we do this first? Okay.
Not at all.
So for the citizens, last time I brought forth an ordinance to increase the stipend for the Board of Elections. And we heard citizens' comments. And for me, it was either the sticking point for some council members was to be able to pay all of the board members an hourly rate or none an hourly rate, and not just have it be the chairman and two assistants. So there are two things, which is why I'm asking the council, or according to Mr. Councilman Herring, make consensus to pull this ordinance. One, which the board has already been informed, even if we push through this ordinance, their stipend would not increase with this election, because it will be outside the time frame that the charter allows for the ordinance to become effective. And with that said, it's more prudent for us to be patient and strategic with this as we analyze just the entirety of how that's constructed. I have some concerns about paying anybody on the board, because in my professional opinion, we get into employment law, and I didn't think that we had enough guidance around that. Because if I'm getting paid, if I'm supposed to be a volunteer, but I'm being paid, then it doesn't matter if you label me as a volunteer. If I'm being paid, then I'm a worker. And that's just my opinion, and I wanted some more information on that, because if I'm a worker and I put in 40 hours in 1 week, and then I'm making, then I do additional 10 hours that week, then technically I'm allowed to have overtime. Well, then that gets into a ballooned budget for the election committee. It's just so many questions around it that I feel more comfortable with pulling this ordinance back. We have another, after the special election on Monday, another 3+ years before we have our next election. And that gives us plenty of time as a council to sit and really think through how this should be constructed, giving credence to what former Mayor Carter was talking about it historically being a volunteer board. So I just thought more discussion needs to be had and more research needs to be done before we move forward with that, especially given the fact that it would not increase the stipend for the election board members for the special election. Councilman Herring?
yeah, I mean, was this the attorney gave this opinion, or this is just your opinion?
Well, and this is really another reason why I want citizens' comments and to influence what we do, that will help influence how we conduct business for the city. It is my opinion, when the initial intent was to just increase the stipends for the election, for the special election. That cannot happen because of the time frame in the charter. Last week it was introduced, oh, well, I think we should also increase the hourly wage of everybody. Well, that wasn't my original intent when I'm bringing forth this ordinance, and it is something that I wanted to think more clearly on. And then I did contact, just to double check with the attorney, to see when this ordinance would take effect. And since it does not affect, since it will not take effect until after the special election, so the board member, the election members would not get a stipend increase for Monday anyway, then I thought it more prudent to pull it back and to really think this through so we can have a more robust resolution for the next election board in 3+ years.
The only reason it wouldn't take effect is because you didn't bring it as it's not brought as an emergency. If it was voted on as an emergency tonight and approved, it would go into effect immediately.
I agree, but I don't think this is, in my opinion, I don't think this is an emergency. If you want to bring forth an emergency ordinance, you're well within your right as a council member to pursue that. I don't think that this constitutes as an emergency. We're in FY22 and we're supposed to have a budget that we don't have. That constitutes as an emergency. But just to increase the stipend of board members, I didn't think that constituted as an emergency personally. But Councilman Herring, you're well within your rights if this is near and dear to you to bring this forth. You can work with the attorney to bring forth the emergency ordinance to increase the stipend.
I mean, I can actually turn this into an emergency ordinance if I get the votes. I mean, I just would need a motion in a second that it come to the floor as an emergency, and we will proceed from there. And that's what I actually think we need to do. I think that until we get legal clarification on this, that we need to move forward with trying to get the election board an increase for this next election that they're coming up to. Because like I say, I don't think this will be as long as the last one, but still they're putting in a lot of hours to do something different than what we've ever done before. And I just think that we need to go ahead and do it. If we can't do it, we in touch with the attorney, like you can't do it, then we'd be like, we tried. But because it's your personal opinion, I don't think it's fair to hold up a stipend for the members of the election board, or that it should be taken off the table because that's the way you feel. I mean, we are a body of 7 members, and everybody should have a say in what it is. So I mean, I would like to make a motion to bring it to the floor as an emergency. See if I can get a second.
Does Mr. Herring have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Jones.
To vote this as an emergency?
Correct.
I think there's some stipulations in the charter that Mr. Aurora Montgomery brought up that kept us from doing any of this. So my answer is no.
Councilwoman Guillaume.
So procedurally speaking, I'm not sure if I can do this. So can I ask Councilman Herring a question, or I'm not allowed to do that?
Yes.
Okay, so Councilman Herring, just for some clarity, you made a motion to do an emergency ordinance to increase the election board's salary. Is that what?
Based on an ordinance that we discussed last week.
Okay.
And there is no procedural thing to keep this from happening. That's not, Mr. Montgomery didn't bring up anything last week that would forbid us from bringing any piece of legislation to the floor. Mr. Montgomery is not a council member.
No.
I'm just addressing Ms. Jones' comment.
And I just wanted to clarify, Councilman Herring. I was saying procedurally, meaning, can I ask another councilman a question, a council person, a member a question before I say, abstain, pass, whatever. So that's why I said that.
Okay.
I'd like to pass right now, please.
Okay. Councilman Herring.
Yes.
Councilman Hairston.
I'm gonna say yes, because I believe that we all took a consensus last week and we was all on the same page.
And just okay.
We did take a consensus to vote on this today, right? And I believe everybody was on the same page saying that they think that people deserve to get paid what they work for, correct? Or am I wrong? Is this
Yeah,
something different?
I think the added piece was it was the stipends that was the issue. The stipends, everybody was in agreement with. The point of you know, I guess disagreement was the hourly wage piece. So everybody gets a stipend on election day. It was at 125. The ordinance was to increase it to 300
300, right?
for everyone. But then where some council members wanted to also, in addition to that stipend, increase, add everyone, enable everyone on the board to also get an hourly wage for work leading up to the election, which is where everybody didn't necessarily agree.
Oh, okay.
So the consensus was, yeah, so it was just a little bit of disagreement on that. So your answer is still yes?
Yeah, I'm gonna sit
Okay.
on it.
Councilwoman Fareed?
So I'll admit I'm a little confused because last week we did take a consensus, but I thought we took the consensus to adjust the ordinance to include all election board members, but it sounds like what we're voting on now or being asked to kind of look at voting is the ordinance as it was originally presented. Is that correct? Or has the ordinance been adjusted?
Correct. Councilman Herring?
Yeah, my thing is to bring the ordinance to the floor as an emergency and amend it however we need to on the way that we discussed it last week. That's what I would like to do.
So Mr. Herring, I'm sorry, Councilman Herring, you are in agreement with not only the increase in stipend, but but adding everyone to the hourly wage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilman Fareed,
Yes, I am in agreement with that. If we're
bring
amending it to include all of the members and increase the amount. But I think the vote that you're asking for, I think the vote is on whether or not we should even discuss this as an ordinance. We're not actually voting on the ordinance right now.
Mr. Herring wants to make this an emergency ordinance so that it can pass. So that's what we're voting on, to make it an emergency ordinance.
Okay, and then we'll vote on whether we want to pass it or not. Okay,
Correct.
so yes, I vote to make an emergency ordinance. Sorry.
Okay. Councilwoman Ferguson?
I'm kind of confused at this point.
All right, so Councilman Herring wants to put forth the ordinance that we had a consensus with last week, which was to increase the stipend to $300 and add everyone to the hourly wage at $15 an hour. Now, as it stands now, the election board will not be able to get it because it's a regular ordinance, and according to the charter, it has to be out. It's 20 days, I believe, before the ordinance can take effect. But as an emergency ordinance, it can take effect immediately, which is what Councilman Herring wants to do. Changes from a regular ordinance to emergency ordinance so that we can include the stipend to $300 and also include add every board member to the hourly wage at $15 an hour for all work leading up to the election.
Now, would this be
this vote is to make it an emergency ordinance to pass to then vote on the emergency ordinance.
I mean, but this would apply for this runoff or on the next election?
It will apply to Monday's special election as an emergency ordinance.
Yes.
Yes. Councilman Curtis, I'm going to vote no. And I'm voting no because of just the liability I think that it opens the city to, with including everyone as an hourly wage for $15 an hour for work leading up to the election. I do give credence to this being a volunteer board, and everyone knowing what they signed up for. I'm saying no because I'm too unsure on that hourly piece. I think that will balloon the budget. I think that if somebody, I have not seen any documents in place to prevent anybody from being able to claim that they worked any amount of hours. Um, it's just too uncertain for me to vote yes on. Does it delve into employment law? I believe so in cases that I've been involved with, but it may not because I'm not a lawyer. But I think those questions deserve to be answered before we say yes to say, okay, well, we're going to add everyone to the hourly employee, because in that case, it doesn't matter if, and by document, we say that they're volunteers. If we're paying them, well, what we're doing trumps what we say on document, that they're volunteers. So for that reason, my answer is, my vote is no, until we can sit as a council and figure out how this affects us as a whole, from not only from the budget, but from employment law as well. So no. Councilman, I'm sorry, not councilman, Councilwoman Guillaume, you passed. I will come back to you.
Oh, I already responded. I'm sorry. I responded a while ago to avoid talking. I put it into chat. I apologize. I voted yes to discussing this as an emergency ordinance.
Yes. All right. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This passes. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question? Because I think I'm not entirely clear on something now. Because I think what I'm not clear on is, if this is an employment issue, wouldn't this have been an employment issue even as it stands today? Because there are people who are getting paid. So I'm not sure if we're introducing an employment issue.
I agree. I don't think we're
Okay.
necessarily introducing an employment issue. I think it was an employment issue all along.
Mhm.
It just hasn't come back to bite us in the, I don't know if that's appropriate, but it hasn't come back to bite us yet. So I do agree that I think there's an employment issue all along, but us adding it on just increases it. It also increases the budget. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm willing to be, my thing is to try to be patient and strategic, and get all the answers I need before moving forward with it. So that's where I am. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm saying just in in my experience, I think it does. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Herring, your motion to have this as an emergency ordinance is approved, and I think what now we vote on it, correct?
Bring a motion to bring it to the floor.
A motion to bring it to the floor
For a vote.
for a vote. Do I have a first?
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
second? Hairston. All right. This is, for clarity for the council, this is to pass, correct, an emergency ordinance to, actually, let me bring up the ordinance so the citizens can see it. Can you see the emergency ordinance? Erica, I'm sorry. You can see it? Okay. All right. So this will, I'll work with the attorney, or Councilman Herring, if you want to, you can work with the attorney to switch this into an emergency ordinance. This will stay at 300, and this will switch to all board personnel, all board members. That will be the only two changes. Emergency ordinance, and instead of this being the chairperson into assistants, this will read as all board members. I just want council to know that we've only approved $43,000 to the budget. So depending on what that looks like, we may have to address that as well. So Councilwoman Fareed, I saw your hand.
Yes, can we also have something in here to cap the hours? Like, or a dollar amount to say, not to exceed, I don't know what the right number of hours would be, but to avoid kind of getting into this runaway situation where, we're paying for 40 hours a week for 52 weeks. I feel like there should kind of be some parameters around what is the anticipated work performed leading up to election. Like what is the timing for that?
I agree, which is why I voted no. I think that has to be ironed out. What is that? What is the plan for that? Who did the research? Was it presented?
Well, I agree. I just think that that's the situation we are in now, right? Like even now, there's no cap on that for the chairperson and 2 assistants. But it looks like the elections board is trying to speak. I don't know if you wanted to.
I'm sorry. I don't. Okay. Election board. It just says election board, so I apologize. I don't know who this is, or whether it's the chairman or. Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you. Yeah, I just forgot to rename election boards to myself. But I just wanted to say a couple of words in reference to this ordinance, emergency ordinance. I understand your concern, and I can definitely appreciate your concern. And with regards to Councilwoman Fareed's capping suggestion, it's really difficult it will be difficult to place a cap because it really just depends on the amount of work that's involved. And if, and capping it would mean, okay, well, now we stop because we can't do anything more. We're not going to get paid for it, right? But with all due respect, I think that considering the legalities around, the hourly wages, I think that if the council moved for an ordinance today, an emergency ordinance to just increase the stipend, I think that would suffice, and it will actually compensate all board members that are not receiving the $15 hourly wage. It would very much compensate them for the work that they have done now and leading up to the election on Monday without actually having to worry about the $15 per hour for all board members at this time. But if the council wanted to be a little more generous, then maybe increase that stipend to $400 per board member. And I think that would very much compensate those board members going forward, so that you may not even necessarily have to look, to amending that piece of the ordinance.
Council President, may I say something?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councilman Guillaume.
I was going to say something similar. So thank you, election board. I'm sorry, chairperson of the election board. I do think that this is specific to number 3. The hourly rate part, or just paying a volunteer hourly. And I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but I believe former Mayor Carter had alluded to some of this last time we met about volunteers. I may be getting it wrong, but I think she did try to address this. But I tend to feel like if we were, for number 3, if we were to probably say the chairperson, well, all election board members shall receive, again, whatever that number is, $100 stipend for all work performed leading up to the election, whatever number we agree upon would be would be more safe than to say $15 or whatever amount per hour, because then you would technically not be considered a volunteer if you're getting paid an hourly wage.
Thank you, Councilman Guillaume. It's still my opinion that I think this needs to be thought through. I think, in my opinion, I think there are too many unanswered questions, and considering the fact that the current board signed up and graciously volunteered and done a fantastic job of performing the last election and getting geared up for this election, because they signed up with the original intent that they would get $125. You know, I would love to you know, increase different things. I just, when I feel like things are being rushed, then I'd rather slow down and think it through. But I get it. What Chairman Richard Arroyo was saying, and I get what you're saying, Councilman Guillaume. And everybody has their vote, so that's fine.
Mr. President.
Councilman Harry?
Yes, well, I mean, I agree with them also. I mean, we can either cap it or we can just put a flat fee in there. One of the two. I think that'll alleviate any issue. Don't go for $600. You hit $600, they got to get a 1099. So stay under $600, go $400, $500 for a flat fee and that'll cover the day of the election and any work done up to that. So I think line number 3, maybe should read the chairperson and 2 assistants shall receive $15 per hour for all work performed leading up to election day. The other election board members will receive a flat whatever for all work leading up to election day, or not add a number 4 and then make number 4 a 5.
Councilman Harry, I'll let you amend it since it was your motion to make this emergency ordinance.
So yeah, so like I said, we should add a number 4, and then we can just decide on what number we want for a flat fee for the election board for all work leading up to the election. And then number 4 will become 5. So I think we should say like the other election board members shall receive whatever the council, I mean, what is it, members agree, I think would be a nice flat fee for them. Another 300, 250. They get a total of $500, 550.
Ms. Harry, actually, I will send this to you.
Well, we have to vote on it tonight, so the council got to be clear on what they're voting on. That's the issue. You know, so we're going to vote on it tonight. It needs to be.
I will ask that you lead this effort as it was your motion for the emergency ordinance. So if you think that it should be a certain number in there,
Well,
please
I mean,
lead the way.
I mean, my thing, I think another $200. Unless someone feels something different, that'll give them a $500 stipend.
And we have 10 members on the election board, correct?
Correct.
But 3 are already getting paid $15 an hour already. So it's only 7 that would get the additional 200. The chair, the vice chair, and the assistant are getting 300 plus $15 an hour. So they already getting theirs.
Mr. Harry, Councilman Harry?
Yeah, that's fine. If that's what the members agree with, at $200 or whatever their preference is. I'm just throwing that out there.
So I just want to say that I support the election board getting compensated at an increased rate. I am still just struggling with the per hour part. Like I'm more of a stipend person versus a per hour person, because if it's per hour, then it's technically not a volunteer.
Well,
that's just the only thing that I'm struggling with. I don't know, maybe I don't know if this is the election board again who can speak to this, but do we have an idea as to when $15 per hour, what that calculates into? Does that count? Because Councilman Herring, you did raise a good point. Like if they surpass 600, right?
yeah, 600 or more.
They have to, it's now a different thing. So can we ask them, Council President or Councilman Herring, can, again, I'm still trying to work out procedural stuff. Can I ask the
not Councilman, I'm sorry. Chairman, Richard Arroyo Montgomery, excuse me.
Thank you. I mean, I think in all honesty, I mean, the general election was a special situation. Because we only had 3 months to put the election together, it took a lot of time because we had just the 3 months to put everything together. This time around for the special election, we budgeted for 40 hours, which I think suffices. Moving forward, I mean, if that $40, I believe that equated to $600. I think if that $15 an hour were to become $600 for the chair and 2 assistants, that would pretty much take care of that work, because the chair and 2 assistants do doesn't sound right, but the chair and 2 assistants actually perform more of the work. So I think that, in all honesty, a $600 compensation for all work leading up to the day of election, I believe would be fair. And then, of course, the additional $300 for election day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be fair. If you wanted to just, just do away with the hourly rate.
Mm-hmm. President Curtis?
Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Jones, can you mute Ms. Smallwood, please? Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes, thank you. So is this, or so then, Mr. Arroyo Montgomery, are you saying that we can put a cap on it at $600? So instead of
can you take the ordinance down so I can see?
Okay, sure.
Okay. It's on mute. Her phone is on mute now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I'm just going to put it back up because all right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. May I respond to Councilwoman Fareed?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, so Councilwoman Fareed, yeah, I think that, I mean, again, the general election was a special circumstance. I mean, that was just different. I don't expect any elections going forward to take this much time.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, I think the $600 budget, the $600 per chair and 2 assistants, in my opinion, would suffice. It can honestly just be changed to a $600 stipend for all work leading up to, the election.
Oh, okay. I think that's important to put that cap, because I do think we while there's a lot of work that the Board of Elections does, and all of your work is appreciated, it is a volunteer role, and I don't want to set the precedent, especially as we seek to engage more citizens in organizing other things, on different committees, that in order to participate, or that you should be expecting some sort of compensation if you're going to volunteer to help the city. So I think it is really important that we set a cap on what we are given as a stipend.
No, and I agree. I mean, and again, I think, this has been the circumstance for years, where the $15, this resolution didn't just come about. I believe this has been in place now since 2007 or something. So, it's not new. And I don't know what former election boards have spent, or what expenses they have incurred in regards to this 15, in regards to this hourly rate. But again, this was a special circumstance. This election was a special circumstance. And I don't think that, as long as the council does what it needs to do moving forward, and, and the mayor does what needs to be done going forward, and the election board is put into place, in time, and, situations like this don't happen again. As I stated, I think the $600 stipend, not even cap, but well, yeah, cap, because it would be a stipend. The $600 stipend, I think, would suffice.
Council President, we have Ms. Crutchfield, who has her hand up, and then also former Mayor Carter. I don't know.
Yeah. So for the sake of time, I want to get through the council and set things in order first, and then I can call on Ms. Crutchfield. I hope I said that right, ma'am, and former Mayor Carter. But I want to be able this to be set because we're already at 9:42. And I wanted to have it set so then we don't have a conversation about this and then something changed and we have to have a conversation about that change. So let's set this first and then we'll accept their comment. Councilman Jones.
The references, this is a question for the election chair. The references that you made to the charter, when we spoke about this in the last meeting concerning how the pay was supposed to be given. Can you re-reference those again? You made some references to how the charter has said how the election board is to be paid?
Right, that's the resolution that we were just looking at.
Oh, that was the resolution. That's not in the charter itself.
No, that's the resolution is the only piece of
that references to.
I guess that references pay to the election board. Yes, there's nothing in the charter.
Okay, thank you.
So I think another thing that we ought to think about, and I did confirm this with the attorney, that our charter does not allow us to retroactively apply this to anything. So if any work was done before now, then that falls under the old resolution. So we still could pass the emergency resolution to allow for work that's done once this is effective up to the election to get a certain amount of money. Just wanted to add that context in there. Mr. Herring, so we'll take your lead on this at where you want these bullet points to be.
You're gonna put it back up.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Can you see it?
Yep. So
okay. I've added number 4. Right. The remaining 7 board members shall receive a $200 stipend for work leading up to the election.
And the chair was saying that $600 cap would be fine for him and his 2 assistants. So number 3 should be the chairperson, and 2 assistants shall receive a flat rate, receive a 200, 300, what is it? What do you say, $600? $600 flat rate for all work leading up to. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry if this is too small. Let me increase this. I see some of you guys squinting. That's squinting, so I didn't realize that it was so small on your end.
Council President?
Yes.
So I know we just, and I don't want to go back. I know we just approved the budget. And I recall you said you allocated a certain amount to this. So if I'm,
$43,000, yes.
yeah, so if I'm calculating things right now, it looks like we're at 6,200.
Okay.
So just wanted to state that for the record.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions? I take it that this Councilwoman Ferguson?
I mean, I really was kind of curious to see what some of the citizens had to say, the ones that had their hand up before I make any.
Yeah, I am too. I just wanted to get this set so we didn't have one, then citizens comment on it, then we change it, then citizens comment on the change. So setting this, and then if there are no more comments from the council on this, if everybody's in agreement that this is the way it should look, whether you're going to vote yes or no, that's still remaining to be seen. But if there are no other comments, then I will go to the two citizens that have their hands up. We're all good? Okay. I saw Mrs. Crutchfield's hand first. So Ms. Crutchfield.
Okay. Hello, good evening. So first of all, I have nothing but love for everyone. And thank you for allowing me to speak. So I was sitting here literally cringing as I was listening to you all about this stipend or whatever this pay you are sitting here going back and forth with. So when I don't know if you can see my comment. So Councilman Derrick, you said everything I wanted to say as far as this. I'm not going to take long because it's late. Far as this payout, it need to be tailored. That's what I stated, as well as in other board elections, the board electors were paid a stipend, and that was a one-time fee per day, not $15 an hour, not let's add 200. Sound like to me, you might not like me, but I just have to say it because I'm sitting here furious that you're rubbing palms, and we just don't do that. Wait, I just want to finish. So to do the right thing, and I'm probably sound shaky in my voice because I'm sitting here like, are you kidding me? Is to and Richard, I love you dearly, you know it, to a stipend for a one-time pay. That was initially, as you mentioned, that it was stated under this all should be done under the old resolution. All this, and then 62, now you have 6,200. It's like, I don't understand any of this. It's just, it's a bit much for me. And it's not, to me, it's like you said, it's gonna come back to bite you. It's just not, I said everything in writing. I can't even speak now because I'm a little floored by all of it. It's just a one-time fee. It's easy. This is really not difficult. This going back and forward. Councilman Herring paid $15, $200. This is just to me, that's nonsense. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Crutchfield. And I was trying to pull up the comments, but for some reason I can't see the comments. And excuse my facial expression. I've been dealing with vertigo, so if it looks like I'm perplexed or about to say something, I'm really just focusing so the room doesn't spin. But thank you for your comment. Former Mayor Carter.
I'd first like to say to Ms. Crutchfield, thank you. You said what I was thinking, but I would also like to bring to the council's attention that if you pass this emergency ordinance, this is forever, unless you're gonna do this every election, go through this, how much are we gonna pay them? What are we gonna pay them? And that means what you're passing here for the chair, for the chair of the board, the assistant and the vice chair, what you're saying to them, if they work 1 hour, not this election, but any election, they're gonna get $600. A stipend is whatever they work leading up to the election. They're gonna get $600. You're gonna give $300, $200, whatever that amount is. The writing's so small I can't see it. To everybody, you're gonna give them $600. Then you're gonna give them all another $300 on election day. Where does it stop? And how long is this emergency ordinance going to be in effect? Do you realize that you're putting something into effect to carry on? This is not just for today or for Monday. This carries on. Thank you.
Thank you, former Mayor Carter. I saw Mrs. Smallwood hand first.
Yeah, I am in agreement with Ms. Crutchfield and possibly in agreement with.
I'm sorry, Ms. Smallwood, you're breaking up.
Carter. I believe that this should be just one stipend, and I don't think the stipend should be $600. I think the stipend should be that everybody get $300. They know that this is a volunteer position. It's not a position to get paid. So when they took this position, they knew it was volunteer and you was just going to get a stipend. Second of all, I would like to see the budget, because the budget they had last time, they paid for catering. You don't pay for catering. The election board never paid anybody to have food catered to them to bring it in. They are supposed to bring their own food when they come. I have served on the election board for the state, the county, and municipalities. And we was told that we are supposed to bring our own food. We are also told that once we get into the chambers, the election chambers, we are not supposed to come out. And I would like to see the budget before they move forward with this.
Thank you, Ms. I'm sorry, were you finished, Ms. Smallwood?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Ms. Smallwood. And Chairman Arroyo Montgomery.
Thanks again. First of all, I think what needs to be said and what citizens need to realize is that these stipends leading up to an election, it will never involve 1 hour, never. A special election, whenever a special election happens, let's say, for instance, a council member is pulled out, or a council member retires or decides they don't want to serve on the council anymore, or we have to fill a vacant seat for whatever reason. At that point, a special election has to happen within 30 days. That means the election board has to immediately get to work. We have to meet week after week. There's work that goes into play day after day. There are calls that have to be made. There are things that have to be set up. We have to contact vendors. There's a lot of work that goes into setting up the election. The election just doesn't happen. These things take time. It takes energy. It just, it takes time. And in terms of being a volunteer thing, the board members signed up per the resolution that was on the table. That was the stipend that was on the table. There was a $15 rate for the chair and 2 assistants. All other board members, were volunteers. That's what we understood. That's what we expected. The board did not ask for any changes. These changes came from Councilman Herring, I believe it was, and Councilman Smallwood at the time. So, if council members are going to put the change out there, and of course the board is going to accept it. I mean, we're not going to turn it away. Why should we? We do work hard. And I think that's what citizens have to understand. When there was a call for members for the Board of Elections, I mean, council members had to scramble to get people. Council members had to ask people because no one volunteered. We volunteered to do this work. And if we're going to get rewarded or compensated for it, then that's great. We appreciate that. So I think a stipend, as we've just discussed, that's not going to hurt or break the budget. It's a minimal amount for the work that is done. And it's work that's not done every year. This is work that's done every 4 years. During the next 4 years, during the next 3 years going forward, now the election board is going to be working and meeting on a regular basis to discuss what we need to discuss as a board to improve on the election process. That's work. Are we getting paid for that? No, and we don't expect to. But when an election comes about, yes, we would expect what we're supposed to get because there's a lot of work that goes into that. I also just want to say with regards to the resolution, I mean, if you look at point 1 and point 2, it basically says the same. So I think if you just add, all board members will receive a flat rate of $300, I think you can erase one line.
Thank you.
And before we close, Council President, there were false accusations made against me at the last meeting.
Chairman Arroyo Montgomery, I appreciate that. I will stop you there. I will offer my personal apologies to all the citizens that are on this call. Yes, there was an allegation the last time that the chairman, Richard Montgomery, would not allow a board member to come and serve the election, and that he put the members' health information out there. I was able to speak with that individual personally, and that person personally assured me that that is not the case. That person had a prior engagement, and that is why that member did not show up. It wasn't because chairman said that that they couldn't, and the information that was shared by that board member was shared by that board member voluntarily. Mr. Chairman Montgomery did not do that. So yes, those allegations were false. So I want to clear that up. And Mr. Chairman Arroyo Montgomery, I personally apologize for you being subjected to those vicious allegations, and we know that they are false by verification by that board member that I talked to and emailed with. So can we rest it right there, please?
Thank you. Yes, we can. Thank you very much. I can appreciate that humbling apology. But getting back to the resolution, yes, I think if you combine lines one and 2, I think you would save some space on this and on this resolution as well. That's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there are no other comments, I just want to say that the fact that we've spent this long trying to discuss it is evidence that this needs to be even more thought out and that we, in my opinion, we should not rush this forward either way. I think that we should table it. As Chairman said, that the current board volunteered with the understanding of the '07 resolution. I think they've done a great job. And while I would love for them to know how much we appreciate them for all the hard work that they do, as Ms. Former Mayor Carter said, that you know, this I just think that we should think about this more, be patient, strategic with this, and table it. I don't think that says anything negative about us and our intentions and our admiration for the board. I just think that we should table it for another time. But with that, this is the emergency ordinance that has been sponsored by Councilman Herring. And if there's no other discussion, we will vote on this ordinance.
Mr. President, before we do take the vote, I just want to make a comment right quick.
Councilman Herring?
The reason why I bought this is because most people who served on election boards know that you serve on an election board, you do your hours, you come in that morning, you come in that evening after the poll, and if everything goes well, you're out of there an hour, 2 hours later. I mean, this was new to this community. It was a mail-in, a drop-off, and an in-person situation that's never happened before. So people keep saying they went in understanding this $125 flat fee. Right, for if you served on an election board, you had an understanding of what you've done before, but they didn't have understanding of what was going to happen at these write-in elections. I mean, these are mail-in elections, mail-in ballots. So my thing is, it could happen again, and it may not happen again, but I think that they should be fairly compensated. Because if you look at it, I mean, even $125 is low. Volunteer, I mean, that's like, I mean, if they made $6 an hour, basically, if you're looking at an hourly rate at the last one, when they worked till 2 in the morning. I mean, it's one thing to be, okay, yeah, it's volunteers, another thing to take advantage of a person. And I just think we need to be fair to the board members that's out there working and working hard. Yes, volunteer, but that don't mean we have to take advantage of it. And that's all I'm saying. I think we need to support this piece of legislation, move forward with it, and give them what they need and give them what they need to be fairly compensate them for their work and their volunteerism, because that's basically what it is.
So two things, Councilman Herring, then I'll go to Councilman Ferguson. I agree with you, but I volunteered to be a councilman, and it's supposed to be a part-time job, but it's a full-time job. And I understood the work that goes into this, but I respect what what's in the charter and what the charter says that the stipend should be for council members, and I'm not looking to increase that. Also, the election board did not come to the council to ask for it. This is something that was volunteered by the former council. So again, I think they have done a tremendous job, and they did it without complaining or arguing, and that is greatly appreciated. But they did not ask for this. This is something that we propose. So from that standpoint, I think they're okay. But Councilwoman Ferguson.
One of the questions I had with this ordinance was was the attorney consulted with this piece of legislation?
Correct. I do not dare to try to write an ordinance on my own. Our attorney prepared this ordinance, and it was with the intention of doing it for future elections and not this one. He agreed that this does not constitute an emergency, just because again, the Board of Elections didn't ask for this. This was an idea that came from the prior council, and that was attempted to carry across the finish line with this council. They did not ask for this. And he does not think that this constitutes as an emergency, us having a desire to pay them more. It's not an emergency. But yes, he did write this ordinance
Okay,
with the
so,
intent for it to be for future elections, not the special election, but the election that's going to happen in 3+ years from now.
okay. My other concern was that, and this is an ordinance, and so, I mean, I feel like we're rushing. I mean, you know, this is something we're putting into law, and we're just rushing into this, going back and forth, looking at the time, and it's going back and forth. I really, it is originally voluntary position. I don't feel like anyone's taking advantage of anyone. And yes, you know, this election and runoff is different, quite different than what we used to, but things happen. And I really do not feel comfortable with going back and forth, rushing, you know, trying to make a decision tonight about this. And even as a council member, you know, a lot of this is voluntary, you know, we volunteering, we are servants, we're serving the city. I could basically say, you know, for the 4 years that I was, you know, $4,800, you know, for some of the things we endure, you know, I wouldn't dare complain about that. And like you said, they did not ask for anything. And I think that if we are going to do an ordinance, then we need to take time to do it. It's just like any other critical decision that we make for our household. We need to, you know, take time because we're going back and forth. I don't see where everybody's in agreement. I'm still kind of confused about it. I'm not satisfied with the fact that, I mean, from what you said, that even if we do this, the attorney is saying that this should be implemented in the, you know, in the election to come. Another one, not this one, not this one. So even in that, we're not taking the opinion, you know, of our attorney. So, I mean, I'm with you, President. I think that we should put it, you know, table it or just, you know, just forget about it. And I'm also with former Mayor Carter and Crutchfield as well. I mean, I just have a headache at this point. Even Citizen Carolyn Smallwood is just going back and forth, and it's too important for me to say yes. So I think we should table it.
Mr. President,
Councilman Harry?
I find that ironic that Ms. Councilwoman Ferguson would vote to table this when she just voted to give herself a $1,200 increase on the council. I mean, so you felt that you needed an increase for all the hours that you put in. Why can't the election board get one? I'm not understanding that. You just voted just last year to give yourself an increase on the council. So if there was no thought in that, that number just came out of nowhere and they threw it out there for the council and the mayor. There was no analysis. There was no research done. It was just, let's give us $1,200 for what? You know, it's volunteer. Why do you need an additional $1,200? You voted for it. You supported it. So I'm not understanding why the election board can get a one-time stipend in an ordinance that can be amended at any time to bring it down, up, or we can research it after the fact and find out something more equitable, or if you want to do just straight stipends. But this is a unique situation. So if you can support $1,200 for yourself, why can't you support $600 for each one of these members? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Herring, like I said, you said it out of nowhere. That was discussed over a period of a couple of years, not the figure per se, but an increase. As far as I'm saying is that we just trying to come to a conclusion within, you know, less than 4 or 5 hours. I mean, I don't think that, yeah, I think it's just important to just be saying something. I mean, I'm still kind of confused back and forth with, you know, from what Mr. Council President said, in terms of what the attorney said, that even if we did vote this in, that it was suggested that it'll be for future. So hearing that, you know, that even concerns me more. So as far as me voting for, you know, an increase, to be honest, when I first accepted to even run, I thought it was, I didn't even know it was a stipend period. I just was volunteering. So the money is not an issue for me. My thing is also, you know, the taxpayers' money, like you said, we don't, you know, it's not even in the budget. So you want to just do this now. And that's what I'm just saying. That I'm not saying that I don't agree that they should get paid. I'm just saying that just the rush to get this done tonight. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ferguson. And just to note that that vote was not effective immediately. That vote was effective for the next term of council persons. And in that case, Ms. Ferguson could not have been on the council. So it would have been for 7 new people had Ms. Ferguson not made the council. So it wasn't for an immediate increase in her pay. It was for the future council in which she ran hard to serve the people of the community. And now she was elected to serve again, which it now takes effect. So Councilwoman Fareed.
Yeah, so just on that point, thank you for making that point, President Curtis, that when council votes on an increase in council salary stipend, it is not for that current council, it is for the future council, which any council member may or may not be on that future council. But I see that it's getting late and I don't feel like any points are being raised that haven't already been discussed. Can we just move to vote for this, and whoever's not in support of it, say no, and whoever is, just say yes or abstain?
Okay. We can move for the vote because we already brought the motion to the floor. So Councilwoman Jones. To for this emergency ordinance, to enact this emergency ordinance as it was amended.
I do greatly appreciate the volunteers and all of the people that worked on the election committee. It was a tough job from start to finish because of the time frame that we had to work within, and I do appreciate your service. But as far as changing this, making this ordinance come to fruition for the next, my answer is no. There's too many questions that have not been answered for us to rush in and make a decision on something that has not been clearly thought out.
Thank you. Councilman Harry?
Yes.
Councilman Hairston?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fareed?
No.
Councilwoman Guillaume?
I'm going to say no, because I still need more time. I want to say that my note is not indicative of or should not represent that I don't believe that the election board did not do an excellent job. And they had to, similar to what Councilwoman Jones stated in regards to just a short period of time to do all that they had to do. And also some of the things that Councilman Herring stated in regards to COVID and all the different types of ballots and things that had to be mailed, et cetera, et cetera. But right now there's still a lot of questions and there's things that I would personally do, but I am representing the city. And so because I'm representing the city, I have to look at what's best for the city. And so if there are other ways that I can compensate them, I wish there was. Right now, I'll have to say no.
Councilwoman Ferguson?
No.
Councilman Curtis is a no. This emergency ordinance fails. On to next business. Councilman Fareed, do you still want to take up your 2 items or?
I will take up my 2 items in 2 minutes. So as part of previous discussions in the budget, we talked about the Wilmore Town Center community room not being able to be rented. I did have a read through the lease agreement. I don't see that is expressly stated. I know that the lease says that it's to be used as community center, but community centers can be rented. So I would like for us to look at that again with the attorney to ensure that our interpretation is in fact correct. If it is not correct, and we can rent it, I would suggest that we rent that space for a bit more. Also, in the lease agreement, it does say that the city is responsible for maintaining the HVAC. So if that is the challenge with getting that room opened, we need to get it repaired. Also, I'm hoping that some of the events that are gratis at the Gold Room can be moved to the Woodmore Town Center Community Room instead, so that the Gold Room can be used. So for example, the Narcotics Anonymous meetings, if those could be moved. I know I'm speaking quickly, but just want to get through the items. So that's the one piece, to talk with the attorney about whether or not we truly cannot rent that space. The other is regarding the $2 million estimated that we are owed from DR Horton for the public safety. If any council members have any supporting documentation for that, and in fact, if there's anything like whatever the agreement was with DR Horton regarding the Woodmore Town Center development, what needs to be done, what we should expect from them to have completed, that would be helpful. $2 million is a lot of money that the city could use, and we should be going after that money if it truly is something that's owed to us. So any documentation anyone can provide, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, everyone.
All right. I think that is all for the agenda. Any citizen, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're going to citizens' comments.
Yes, that was the
Okay.
last thing on the agenda.
Right, okay. No,
Okay.
that's fine. I was just wanting to make sure that's where we're going next. It's on the agenda. I know it's late, but it's on the agenda.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's where I was going. So, I saw Mr. Huff Jr. hand raised, and the other three hands I saw were already from last time. So I'll go with Mr. Huff Jr.
Excuse me.
I just got a concern. When y'all advertising the meetings, I know y'all normally do it like 2 or 3 days before, but I noticed that the meeting agenda and the packet, it always say TBA, and then like a day before it be up. Is it a way that we could get the meeting agenda and packet up when y'all post the meeting on the website the same day?
Yeah, so the reason for that the past 2 times was that we knew we wanted to have the meeting, but we're having some issues with the Zoom transferring. So it takes time, and according to Maryland Act, we have to advertise a meeting in advance, at least 24 hours in advance. So that was the intent. The intent was to actually notify the citizens that there was going to be a meeting, even if we didn't have the meeting packet ready, so people can know. And then when that packet was ready, to add it. But overall, Mr. Huff Jr., the goal is to have even more than 2 to 3 days. Right now, we've just been playing catch up and trying to have these emergency meetings to get things done. So it has been a hustle to get things out. So please forgive us on that, but the goal overall is to have the citizens a full packet, a full alert, at least a week out in advance of these meetings. But your concern is noted and appreciated.
And then I got one question. The courts at the King site, they still not up. Is it like any progress with that?
Councilman Herring?
Yeah, I need to reach out to the chief and see where they are with that. I had talked to Public Works, but I think something went wrong with them when they took them down. But I'll follow up with the chief on that.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
And I'm not sure if Ms. Smallwood from Mary Lane and Ms. Crutchfield has their hand up again, or because it never went down. Okay, Miss.
This is Miss Crutchfield. I did take my hand down and put it back up. I just have a quick question. You all mentioned taxes. I was trying to listen. I'm on my cell phone. I'm not on the computer, and I didn't get the agenda. So what taxes are being raised? I missed that.
Taxes are not being raised. There was an error at the tax office that set the rate at 3571 when it should have been 3481. So a letter has been sent to the county that which then will go to the citizens to make sure that you know that the rate is actually 3481.
Okay, because if anything, it should be decreasing. So I thank you.
Mr. President, may I make one statement?
Sure, Councilman Harry.
I just checked my tax bill for 2022 and my taxes went up. So if they corrected it, they must have corrected it too late. So check your tax bill to be sure. I'm telling you, I just checked mine, and because the taxes are due in July and August. So
yes,
mine just went up. So
which is what I said in the beginning, that you will get that bill. It'll be at 3579. And that is error. That is an error.
But people are going to pay that. You got to pay that bill.
And it's going to be retroactively adjusted.
By who?
By the county. They're going to send out, we have to get a letter to the county, has to be approved by them. It'll go to the citizens, and the next bill will come with the adjustment.
For those who pay in 2 payments, those who pay in 1, are they going to get a check back?
They should get a check back. One of the things that the county wanted to make sure is that we filled these questions because they said that the error was not on them, the error was on the city.
Right.
And so that we should not flood their call center, but that citizens should flood our phone calls, which is legit.
Yeah.
Which is correct. But again, this is where we are. This, for one way or another, it should have been done a while ago. It wasn't. We're here now. We got the right number to the tax office. They could not pull what was already in the system, so they're going to put out another bill to the citizens. And what we can do is, I don't know if Mr. Stewart is on the line still. I think he left, but I can reach out to him to put on the website what we can do for people who have concerns, or if people don't even want to pay the bill and want to wait for the second bill to come. Completely understand. But we will do research, and I'll get talk to the administration to get some guidance on the webpage for our citizens.
So yes, moving forward, I'm expecting this council to try to lower our taxes. If you can meet with County, Angela Alsobrooks, or whatever you need to do to try to lower these taxes, or we write letters, whatever we need to do. So anyway, you all have a good night. I've
Thank
said
you.
enough.
You too. For Mayor Carter, you're mute. Mayor Carter, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I would like to thank the council for that vote, for that last vote with regards to that last ordinance. But I would like to ask the administration, the signs that they put up about the meetings, if they could buy some have them printed or use markers that they can be read. But we have got to do better by, you're notifying, you're putting the signs up for the residents, but they are sometimes in such terrible condition that you can barely read them. You have to almost stop traffic to see what day and what time the meetings are going to be held. Can we please do something about the appearance of those signs to the administration? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Good night.
Good night. I saw Miss Hunter's hand first. Miss Hunter.
I'm coming.
Miss Hunter?
I'm coming. Trying to
Okay.
unmute myself.
Oh, you're here. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. See, I told
Yes.
you I don't know how to mute. And sorry about earlier. But so I was basically I had a question regarding the basketball hoops. Again, I know Councilman Herring said that I think he said he reached out to, I didn't hear exactly what he said and what the issue could possibly be. Because we're well into summer, and when I ride by, I always look. I was over at the recreation center today, and they have the hoops up, and the kids are out there. Again, I'm extremely passionate about the kids in Glen period, but Ward 1, these children over here should not always have to cross the highway to go and have some type of recreation. Is there something that a citizen can do to reach out and contact someone about the hoops being put back up? Because I'm not understanding the delay. So I guess I'm looking for clarity. And also I agree with Ms. Elaine Carter with those signs, because literally I think it's a sign here on Glenarm Parkway crossing over onto coming off 704 on Ward 1 side, where I don't think the sign is just there, but I don't even think the date is on there. So that's definitely something that needs to be that we would like to see addressed. But Councilman Herring, can you please give me more information on the hoops? Let me know if, as a citizen, I don't have a problem with reaching out, because it's something that needs to get done. These kids been out of school since June. They should be able to go and have some fun and play basketball.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm reaching out to the chief right now. We'll see. See if we can
Thank
get
you
him
so
up.
much.
All right.
I appreciate you.
All right. Bye.
Yes, and I know Mr. Huff Jr. Sent an email directly to the chief, and the chief responded. So, yes, Ms. Hunter, you can reach out directly to the acting city manager, who's the Chief O'Donnell, and I'm pretty sure he'll get back to you. He's been good.
Can I say something real quick?
I wasn't finished, sir.
Oh, my bad.
It's okay. No, it's all in love. I did have one question. I don't know if the chief of police or if it's a police officer still on here right now, and this might not be the forum for this. And if it is, just shut me down if it's not the forum for it. But I'm having another issue with people coming and sitting on the street, and they're doing some transactions in the front of a house where kids are, and it's becoming a every night event. And I have called, but by the time I called, they're gone. Can Glenarden ride through? Can a cruiser can I reach out tomorrow to the police department and ask them to just cruise through this particular street, the neighborhood, period, and just kind of make their presence known? Because again, we had an issue before on my street where, because there is no presence, people think they can do whatever they want to do, and there's a lot of senior citizens on the street that are afraid to speak up and say anything. Whereas me and a couple of other neighbors, we're vocal, and I'm going to speak up. I pay my taxes. This is where I reside, and we don't want it. It's not wanted here, and we're not going to accept it. We're not going to tolerate it. So, but we need help.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hunter. I do not see the chief on the call.
I'll reach out directly tomorrow. That's fine. Thank you.
The lieutenant is on there.
Lieutenant Robinson? You're on mute, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I heard your complaint. All you got to do is reach out to me tomorrow. Let me know the address where you live, and I'll definitely take care of that issue. Okay.
I will. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
All righty. No problem.
Chairman Arroyo Montgomery. We will just for time, we're going to go Arroyo Montgomery, I think Mr. Jeff Harris Jr., but he's going to be this last one, and then we will adjourn.
Okay, yes, thank you. I just wanted to quickly say, with regards to the tax notices, just to understand. So the tax bills go out, but it has the incorrect yield rate. So a revised bill will be going out immediately or shortly thereafter, or what?
Councilwoman Fareed is currently working on a letter, drafting a letter, and then that letter will be given to the county, which they will have to approve it. It's a letter to the citizens informing them what's going to happen. Basically what happened, the 35% versus 34%, and that you'll be getting the 34% correction bill in the mail. And then once they approve that letter, they'll send that letter out with the, I believe, the new bill. But like I said, that I will talk to the administration for them to get solid guidance to put on the webpage so people can know what to do.
Okay, so so that was gonna be my second point. So the website doesn't really reach all residents. I think that some kind of notification should go out to the citizens now, so that citizens are aware that this is happening and what more to expect going forward. Because I mean, as I say, there are a lot of residents that do not have access to the website, so they're going to get these texts, but they're going to have no idea what's going on, and it could be a month or so before they're even aware of what has happened. So I think, in the interest of all citizens, a letter should immediately go out to all citizens with this information. That's just my suggestion, my recommendation. You can take it or leave it, but I think citizens should be rightfully informed.
Okay.
Thank you,
sir.
Yep.
Mr. Huff Jr.
Quick thing to add on to what Mr. Montgomery said. I noticed like on the website, it say like sign up for email or text alerts. But I'm like, since I signed up, I have never received an email or like a text alert about city business. And so I'm just thinking like maybe we can get that platform more effective, like get it more going, so that we actually get, hey, we can get a text message. Boom, there's a City of Glen Autumn regular meeting. Blah blah blah. You get what I'm saying? It's something, because I have that option up there, but I feel like I'm not using it. Well, everybody else might be getting it, but me personally, I don't get no texts or emails about city unless I see it on Facebook or the website. That's the only way I know, me personally. And then another thing, could any other council reach out to the chiefs to tell them to put the courts back up? Do it necessarily have to be Mr. Herring, or is that job just left up to Mr. Herring?
No, anybody can. Mr. Herring volunteered. I remember he volunteered last time and he was on it. So it's just him following up with the chief. But yeah, anybody can reach out.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
And Mr. President, just to give a straight update, like I said, we went over there and looked at I went over there with the public works supervisor and looked at it, and it looks like something is broken on the bottom of one of those, of the courts. It's like a frame, and the piece isn't up there. So that's why I said I got to find out from the chief what's going on with that. That's what the problem is. You can't just put them up there and have the whole thing slide on somebody's head. It's a fiberglass backboard. So I'll find out. I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. The time is 10:34. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Guillaume.
Council President, this isn't going to take long, but I believe in an effort of being transparent that and this is not for discussion, this is just to update the citizens because there's been a lot of chatter today, especially. So if I may, I just want to state to all citizens that Some of you have probably heard, and I cannot speak on litigation, but I will just say that some of you have heard or probably heard about a lawsuit that was filed against the city. A ruling, that hearing was held today, and the judge ruled in our favor. All the case was dismissed, not on one, but all counts. And the judge specifically stated that the special election that is being held on July 26th is legal. So I just wanted to put that on record so we can put this litigation stuff to rest. So thank you, Council President, and everyone for your time.
And with that, the special election is on Monday, Monday, July 26th. So go out and vote. It is your right. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging in there. I promise you we'll try to make these meetings shorter. And we hear all your concerns, and we're working hard to address all of them. So with that, again, thank you again for coming out. And it is 10:36 p.m. and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.